And someone will sell a crap house with lipstick on a pig.
No, you paid that money to not buy it. There's only like 4 needs in the world. You need food, water, shelter, and air. That's what you need. Everything else should be a want. If Warren Buffett can't make 18, 19%.
Well, that was your nickname in high school, wasn't it?
Come along.
I thought it was.
Here comes come along. Everybody hide the women and children. Here comes come along.
I thought it was come along.
Come along. That was.
Everybody, you're kicking it with the Homeboys and the Homeboys podcast, and we are super stoked today, let me tell you. We are here with mortgage extraordinaire Aaron Chapman, but more importantly than the mortgages, in my opinion, is he's like a real-life Walter Mitty, Bear Grylls, Forrest Gump, Steve Jobs. He is just the international, he's the real international man of mystery, and he's been a dear friend of Scotty and I for a very long time. Honored to have worked with him through countless transactions, and we are honored that he is here in the studio today. So
buckle in.
Buckle up. He's an interesting one. We're very, very amped up for this one. Mr. Chapman, how are we?
Walter Mitty. I haven't heard that damn name.
We say it about you. We say it about you all the time. That's how we describe you.
Huh.
Yeah.
And how many people actually know what you're talking about?
Not many.
There's a well,
but we don't care. That's kind of that's right.
Well, it turned into a movie. They turned the book into a movie.
Let me say shit.
Oh yeah, it's welcomed. But
it's encouraged.
Just checking. I was like, I know that in the past you guys are cool. I was like, wait a minute, we got to calm this down.
Speaking of, we wanted you to explain what a mortgage is, with as many cuss words as you possibly can into that camera.
Mortgage is a shit show and a half, is really what it is. That particular camera.
Yeah.
So if you really want me to describe mortgage, really it's a person taking out leverage on a piece of property. And unfortunately, many people have looked at it the wrong way. They've looked at it as you're in debt, which it is. It's debt if you're the one who owns the house, right? You're the one living in it. You're the one paying it. You're the one dealing with the upkeep on the home. But if it's something that you're buying and renting, it's the greatest asset involved in the deal. And people don't understand that it's an asset, especially now they don't understand the asset. They're so wrapped up in the cost and the rates and all this bullshit that they're forgetting that the greatest asset associated with their transaction is being able to secure 30-year leverage. And they're cutting it short and getting shorter leverage because it's cheaper. People have misinterpreted the mortgage over the years as debt, right? And it is their greatest debt. It's their opportunity to be able to buy a home. And they've also misinterpreted that owning your own home is where your greatest wealth is created. It's not, right? It's your greatest liability because you're the one responsible for that. But if you're one of those investors that understands that when you buy a property and rent it out to somebody else and make them responsible for the loan, then all of a sudden it becomes the greatest asset. You didn't have to pay for it. You paid for 20 to 25% of something and let somebody else completely pay for everything else and give you cash flow. You get the tax benefits, you get the appreciation, you get all these things. But the problem we've had, and I'm going to blame you fuckers, just to be
sure.
blunt.
Come on.
You've been talking to my wife.
I'm not talking.
You've been talking to my wife.
And what I mean by you guys is not just you guys yourself, but people in the real estate industry that have sold cash on cash return for the last 12 years.
Right.
Because it's easy. You put in so much cash,
right.
You get so much cash every month, there's your cash on cash return. It's easy when the interest rates are 3% and 4%.
We haven't understood that, though. You have to understand, we look at real estate through a different lens than most of our clients do. Regardless of the fact that they buy cash on cash, we
provide cash on cash because we almost have to.
That's what they want to see.
That's what they want to see, but they want to see it because you guys have talked about it for so long.
Yeah,
everybody's talked cash on cash because it's the easiest way to sell, and it's probably been about 8+ years now that I've preached not staring at the cash on cash, because to me the cash on cash is the smallest metric in the entire deal.
We agree,
100% the smallest.
We 100% agree.
In my opinion, and it's not even an opinion. It should be a fact, but I'm going to have to go off opinion because I'm the only guy with it. When you're looking at a pro forma is a way that when you're flying by in a market at 30,000 feet at Mach 2, you look at that pro forma and it gives you that cash on cash return metric. That's to attract you to land, right, and take a look deeper in the market. Now, what a person should be looking at is more on what's my capability to keep this property reasonably rented for the entire time I own it, and what's the capability to raise rents. That's it. right? That's the property. And when it comes to the market itself, who's my person in the market? And is that person going to help me maintain my objective, which is to keep it reasonably rented and raise rents? Is that person going to do that? And if they can, and you can be reasonably confident in that happening, then you have a business. But if you're doing it strictly on cash, people can jerk you off into doing something that you probably shouldn't do, would never do if you had looked at all the metrics, but you're looking at the one metric.
We couldn't agree more. That's how we evaluate long-term holds for ourselves. The cash on cash is just the little cherry on top. It's a way to take a quick analyzation of the property to see, hey, should we dig deeper? Because if there's cash on cash returns, then, okay, that's a good starting point. Now, is it going, will this stay rented? Is it in an area where it's going to hold its value and increase in value? You want to look at this as an asset over time. It's
a long-term play.
It is. It's a
100%
long-term play.
long-term play.
And people look at that monthly income, and it's just such a small factor. If you look at a property that you've had for 10 years and you do the math and you say, okay, I've brought in $30,000 in rents and I've paid $20,000 in expenses, I made 10 grand. Great. That's fine for 10 years. But then if you look at what your mortgage has been paid down for those 10 years, that the tenant paid it down, that's going to be bigger than your cash on cash return. And we're not even talking about that. Most of the time, the appreciation number will also be bigger than your cash on cash you made.
By far. And so let's do a little bit of math together.
Yeah.
If you guys don't mind. I mean, you guys got your phones.
I'm a math guy.
Yeah, I don't know if you put phones away, but let's do a little bit of math. So let's say and guys, everyone who's watching this, I know I'm talking about numbers that are not real right now because of what's happened in the market, but let's say it's a $100,000 acquisition.
Right.
You're going to put 20% down.
Right.
And you bought the house, you can keep reasonably rented, like we said, and you can raise rents. If that is the case, who pays off the 80% loan?
The tenant.
The tenant, right? So the 80% loan is how much?
80
what?
$80,000.
$80,000. Right. So that's the money you've invested. So, that's the money you haven't. The money you've invested is a 20% down. And we're going to say plus cost. So let's say it's about $6,000 in cost. So you invested 26 grand. You got 80,000. Now, let's say that 80,000 is being paid off by your tenant, like you just said. Now divide 80,000 by 30 and tell me what you get, because that's how many years it's going to take your tenant to pay this thing off.
2.6.
Yep, $2,666.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, no, he's Rain Man with this stuff.
Yeah, no kidding. So I didn't drop any matchsticks, and this son of a bitch knew exactly what I was talking about. So, so 2 points. So you get holy shit, man! I've talked to a lot of people out there, and I think I've had one person actually pull off the top of my head, and this guy.
Well, listen,
when you're in this math,
when you're in the car with him, all he says while you're driving for hours, 97X, the future of rock and roll.
It's that Rain Man quote in the movie. No.
Well, bam! The future of rock and roll. Jeopardy. We're gonna miss Jeopardy.
We have a thing in here, like we've got 1,000 properties under management. Like people can name a street, and I can give you the house number for all of them.
I didn't know that about you, so that's going to be interesting. We're going to go out later on tonight. We're going to work that to our advantage. Somewhere.
And ounces of alcohol, maybe?
something. So we got $2,666 and how many cents? I'm going to see how big your balls are.
No, I'd be to say 67 cents, I think, so.
Yeah. Damn. I know that because I run the calculation 100 times. Right. So $2,666.67, right? Now you divide that into your 26,000 that you invested, right? And what percentage do you get?
I'm not going there.
You're not a percentage guy.
I'm not going there.
10.25%.
10.25.
That means every year your original 26,000 you invested is growing by 10.25% every single year. Now it's not a compound because it's you're not adding it's not on what you add to it. So it's 10.25% every single year you're growing. That's the baseline. That's just having somebody in your house. That's not increasing your income. That's not decreasing your income. You put in 26 grand, you don't make another dollar, you don't spend another dollar. 10.25%. Where else are we getting that kind of consecutive, predictable return?
Oh, you can't get a certain return, in equities, stock market, bond market, for over a couple of percent.
Yeah, it's unpredictable wherever else, right? This is predictable, and that's just that.
Right.
We haven't gotten to cash flow. Then you also have appreciation. We're living in a high inflation environment. Appreciation is definitely happening. Then you get into the tax benefits. What you get to keep that the government doesn't take and piss away on stupid programs or stupid things that meets the requirements of other people, not you. And then you get into the cash flows. Now, because we live in a high inflation environment, we get to raise rents, right?
Right.
How much are rents going up by year over year right now in the United States?
It's really tough. I mean, it's market to market. Our market has seen an increase like we've never seen before.
What would you estimate their rent?
It's not normal. you're looking at the last 2 years, annually rents have went up somewhere around 15%.
If you look national average, it's 12. Right. What would you say is the worst performing market in the United States right now? Now, I don't know if it's right now, but over the last 5 years, the worst performing market.
I mean, it's got to be New York or LA would be my two guesses. But
what would you guess?
That would be somewhere in there.
It was actually Minneapolis, Minnesota.
What?
Was the worst performing market.
Not have been there.
That was the data that I found myself sitting on a plane next to one of the executives from Redfin.
Okay.
We got to talking about this. And he was like, we're trying to figure it out. And I was like, it's pretty easy to figure out why that. He goes, why is that? I says, it's interesting what happens to a market when you want to defund the police and burn down police stations.
Oh, right.
I wasn't going there. Now I'm seeing the videos
I'll go
of
all
them
kinds
like, going into, throwing chairs through a bank,
Right.
teller window.
I'll go all kinds of places, right?
Right.
And so what we're starting to find is when you do that kind of stuff, the people who pay their bills, they want to leave.
Right.
Right? The people who don't want to pay their bills, they don't mind sticking around
Right.
because somebody else is going to cover it. So I don't know. People try to turn that into a politics thing. It's not politics. It's the reality. You start doing things like that, that's what happens to market. So be cognizant of what's going on in your market if you're going to invest in it. So they sell
we take that seriously. So we look at that here. So we are not.
You guys have pockets here that you're aware of that.
Yeah, and as you know, we go out into the suburbs where people want to live. We don't like to be in those inner city markets where there is ups and downs and big political swings can change. In these suburbs of Indiana,
pockets. I mean, you go downtown, you've got pockets that are you got
sections.
high dollar houses, and then you go 0.2 of a mile the other way, and it's crack houses.
Yeah. It changes dynamically. The person doesn't understand the market.
Right.
You can put not only yourself but the people that they're offloading these properties to in a really, really bad spot.
We see it all the time where we will put a house up in a really good area, and someone will sell a crap house with lipstick on a pig in a bad area that's a mile and a half away,
and they'll try and use yours
comp. Correct.
Exactly. And if a appraiser doesn't know what they're doing, they're going to end up selling somebody incorrectly. And I've seen a lot of people try and play in this market and stick people in the ass.
Yeah.
I'm not going to name names, but I can name in alphabetical order what's going on. So that's why I focused on you guys. And anybody says, "Hey, I'm looking at Indiana," it's like, only look at these sumbitches. Yeah. Right. Now, when you're talking about Indianapolis, there's really only one group that I really, really trust because I've seen what you guys do. So kind of back to where we're at with the.
But there's a reason we've been around for 2 decades.
Well, it's because you guys still have the scars on your ass from having that chunk taken out of it for buying the house. I remember you telling me about that one where somebody took a chainsaw and cut out all the damn windows.
Yeah.
Right? Do you still own that property?
No.
Okay, I didn't know if you still own that shit. Just let it sit abandoned.
No, I mean, same thing. I think I took $5,000 for it. And I was lucky.
It was cheaper if you let it sit abandoned, right?
It would have been a favor. Yeah, I'm sure. I know that.
It'd be worth it as something just as the showpiece.
Right,
I know. Drive by and say, hey, there's
there was a guy in the turnkey business for a while, and he was out of Utah. And for some reason, he came to Indianapolis, and he gave away a house in an MMA match. So he was in an MMA match, and if he lost, he was going to give his opponent a house. He bought the house from me, and it was a sheriff's sale house. I paid like $6,000 for it.
We got the YouTube clip of the fight, actually,
of him fighting him, and I feel so bad for that guy who won the fight because I know how that house works. He's going to lose money. It's going to cost him money to own it.
Fight thing. I'm going to go kick this guy's ass
and get a house.
He ended up giving you a dildo.
Correct. Correct.
Really
he gave you a problem right up your butt.
He didn't have batteries in.
No, just a problem right up your ass.
But people don't understand that. People get a pro forma, pushed across the table, and they're like, "Oh, cash on cash of 18%," and like literally, they don't understand that. Nobody is going to make that house work. I mean,
18%. Let's talk about, and we're all over the place. I mean, we're not on the topic yet.
It's all good.
But 18%. So, in my opinion, pro forma is a Greek word for bullshit, right? It's just made up numbers. Well, there was a clip out there recently that, what the hell's his name? Omaha. Freaking
Mutual of Omaha.
No,
Warren Buffett.
No, Warren Buffett. I don't know why sometimes I can't pull that.
The Oracle of Omaha. I don't say
Oracle.
I was going to say it's Omaha. I'm like,
Oracle
you're talking about
Omaha.
Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
So he talked about. He was on Instagram. He was talking to some woman that she'd saved up a lot of money to her, not a lot to him, is what he said. And she asked him, "Where should I invest it?" He goes, "Well, are you currently carrying debt?" She goes, "Well, yeah." He goes, "Well, credit cards? Yes, credit cards." He goes, "You're probably paying 18 to 19%. Pay that off." She goes, "But I'm not investing. Why would I want to pay that off?" He goes, "Because I can't make 18 to 19%.
Right.
If Warren Buffett can't make 18 to 19%. Who the hell do you think you're working with that you're getting an 18% cash on cash return? It's complete fictitious bullshit, but people get suckered into this because, wow, this is awesome. And then a year down the road, like, what the hell? And they're calling me, the lenders, like, I can't make my 18% work because of you. Why me? How about the asshole who gave you the damn pro forma?
It's literally
They're not
like
being held accountable. It's me.
The best, scenario analogy that I've heard when it comes to that. Like people see that, 18%. And here you've got the best investor in the modern world, that is saying that he can't do it, but people think that it's real.
We had a lot of clients who got sucked into that 18% on a piece of paper with, he used to be on Fox and Friends.
Well, I know what you're talking about. That son bitch is now living overseas, and I don't know why that son bitch is not in irons.
Yeah, and so he sold a lot of our clients' houses, and they bought them at that 18% on a piece of paper. And we literally, on multiple occasions, said, your only hope is that the house burns down. Otherwise, you just need to find somebody that you can deed this over to. And they're like, well, I gave them $80,000 for the house. And
you overpaid by 50.
You overpaid by 81,000.
Well, and I don't know how many phone calls with that individual and the clients on the phone directly. And I remember I was at a licensing renewal course, and I stepped out to take this call. And we're going back and forth. I'm like, and when he hung up, I'm like, dude, you can't sell them this piece of shit, and I'm not going to finance it. So he convinced them to pay cash.
Right.
It's amazing, and
we saw that a lot.
Tons. And when you have a person that says we're going cash only, there's a good reason why they're going cash only, right? If you can't finance it, and a lot of people get really frustrated with us as the financing side of it. It's like, man, your appraisers are a pain in my ass. And it's like, no, we're protecting you. And one of the things that really not really frustrates, but makes me laugh is when people, they spend money on inspection. They spend money on a reinspection. They spend money on an appraisal. And they're like, it didn't come in. It's got problems on the inspection. The appraisal came in low. And now I've got to close on it. I've got to spend all this money. I'm like, no, you paid that money to not buy it.
That's right.
Not to buy it. This is not one of those sunken cost situations.
Right.
Good point.
Very, very interesting thinking stuff.
Yeah, that's pre-research.
Exactly. You got to pay to know whether or not you're going to buy into it.
Correct.
It's no different than paying a group of people to investigate a company for you and verify its validity before you invest in it or become part of it. That cost is what's to prevent you from getting into something that's going to cost you a lot more.
So we do a third-party inspection and give it to our clients in advance. And that isn't to stop them from getting their own. We encourage them to get their own.
Oh, hell yeah. And I encourage them to get their own.
Of course. And it's only just to show the pre-research is done. It's worth your time and money to pay for your own inspection because this isn't going to be a nightmare. Here's the third-party inspection we got. It's worth the small investment. You're going to end up going forward with it because we've already done it.
And the one thing I encourage heavily, and those who are paying attention, you better damn well listen to this because this can bite you in the ass. It bit me in the ass, and I'm seasoned in all this kind of stuff. I call myself seasoned. I've been doing it for 24, 40, 25 years. I should be seasoned by this time, but I still got bit in the ass. I did a inspection on the property, had this list of stuff that needed to be done. I handed it off to the guy who was selling it. He said, okay, it's all done, and I need to get it closed so I can deploy that capital for the end of the year, and I get my tax benefits, right? I didn't send the inspector back out.
Yeah.
And then we end up having to turn that property in 3 months. You know how much of that shit that I had to redo that was already inspection report, but I couldn't prove that it wasn't done. I couldn't prove that tenant didn't cause that problem. It's $5,000 worth of stuff.
Well, guess who you should have bought from? Guess who gets a second inspection and we give it to our clients?
Well, there we go. Right?
So we get the list from the first inspection.
Well, and see, I didn't intentionally buy here.
Right.
So this is another thing about Aaron Chapman you're going to find out is when I mouth off, I deliver on what I say.
Yeah.
And in this situation, I saw the pro forma, again, the bullshit, number, and I had a client who was buying this house, and it was a ridiculous number. It was a ridiculous cash-on-cash return. I'm like, that's crazy. And they're talking about backing out. I was like, damn, they back out of that. I may want that. Well, guess what? 2 weeks later, I get a call from somebody say, hey, I got that contract coming to you. I'm like, for what? For that one you said? I'm like, son of a bitch.
Yeah.
So
careful what you wish for.
Right? I mouthed off. Right? It's kind of like the length of my beard. It used to be just a little bit longer than yours, Scott.
Yeah.
Because I was at an event. I always kept it trimmed like that. In fact, my beard even came because I couldn't grow one. I had a patch missing. I think it was this side. I got in a motorcycle accident in 2008, and then it cleaned that up and it filled in. You remember me from the Hartman days. I kept it trimmed up. And then,
we're going to flash some pictures. If you'd send them to our producer, I want to flash some pictures of your accident up.
Yeah, definitely. It's just that photo bucket stuff. Yeah. And so, in fact, in the pictures from the accident, you can see kind of tore up and whatever. And so what it did is I decided to keep the beard after that, and I just determined when I had that accident, I shattered my legs. I was going to not trim it till I learned how to walk again. So it got about 1.5 inches long, And then I kept it about there. When I went to this event and I trimmed it before the event to keep it that same length. And a guy walked up to me, Ron Phillips, we're all friends with him. And he says, my beard was longer than yours yesterday. I'm like, well, mine was longer than mine yesterday. And it's like, here's the deal. I won't trim it till I see you again. Now, at that time, I saw Ron at the longest every 6 months. I didn't see that guy for 5 years. So this beard got all the way. I had to keep it braided because I was doing rescue for the sheriff's office, right? And once it got to a certain length, when a helo's coming in to get us out of a really, really bad situation, the rotor wash was just slapping me in the eyeballs with this damn beard. So I had to braid it up so it wouldn't get in my way. And it also kept from getting in the way when I was doing rope rescue and all that kind of thing. It got down to my waist.
I've seen pictures.
So I finally, and it got really, really thin down there. It looked really stupid, right? So I'm like, finally, I called Ron. It's like, I'm not going to see you face to face. Get on the damn phone. Let's do a Zoom call. And I finally clipped 8 inches off it. Now I've cut a full foot to keep it where it's at.
It sucks to be a man of your word. You got to buy houses you don't want. You got to grow a beard you don't want.
Well, and I want the beard because it's now a brand. But the thing of it is, at that length, dude, in the middle of the night, you roll over on this stuff. It's caught in your armpit. I mean, it's just, it was not comfortable. What's funny is when I talked about that one time on the phone, my wife stops me. She's like, I'm still on the phone. And my wife's one she doesn't have the best demeanor when it comes to the phone. She'll just talk to you, right? Yeah. She'll be yelling in the background if you're on a call with somebody that there's a problem. She's trying to tell you what to say. She's like, is that why you have that damn thing so long? I'm like, it's a brand now, baby. There's nothing we can do about it.
Right.
Well, it is what
I want to talk about the beard and then close it out and then go backwards because
we got to go backwards. I'm
sandwiched in between you two guys that won't shut up, and I'm gonna have to keep you guys on point
because we still got to get into
that's right.
the rent raises and all that kind of crap.
But we had done a lot of deals with you, and I've talked to you on the phone. This is way back, and I had this perception of what you look like. I'm sure you get this all the time,
constantly.
All the time, and then we went to an event. And you came up and said Aaron Chapman, and I got, I was completely taken back by what I had put in my head about what you had looked like. And your beard was much longer, at the time. I think you had a hat on very similar, still rocking, I think, a steel hat. But
there's a reason for that, too.
But, I don't know. That's part of, we left that event, Scotty and I I remember just, being like, man, what a cool dude that just marches to the beat of his own drum, does a crap ton of loans, very successful, and he does it his way. And I don't know, we've always respected that about you. That's why it's awesome to have you here at the table. So I want to go backwards.
Well, first, I had the same experience with him, but it ties into something else. So I had no idea what you looked like either at one point, and I had to FaceTime you. And it might have been even before FaceTime on iPhones. It might have been something else. But it's when you worked in a mortgage company that was imploding. Mortgage company was. And the reason I had to FaceTime you was because I used to track our sales on a whiteboard. And they were handwritten in there. And I had to FaceTime you so we could go through them one at a time. I don't know if you remember that.
It's been a while.
It's a long time.
It's 2012 or 13. It's 2012.
And I remember getting you on there and not having trouble believing it was you.
The voice is right, but he's got a filter on before filters.
Yeah, but boy, did you step up on those. I mean, I don't want to dwell on it, but
those were wild days.
It was wild days, and I always tell the same story about you often, which is you really get to know somebody what their real character is when you go through a difficult time with them. It's part of the reason why military folks have such strong bonds. They go through a lot of stuff together, and seeing the integrity that you operated with when everything went wrong, when everyone else was running for the hills, when everyone else was scared or throwing up their hands, you spent months of time cleaning up these messes that a company you worked for created that was not your own fault, and you helped all of these people, and I believe you didn't make anything on most of them after 2 months of work.
It was 32 transactions. So I was working with this company. We had all these deals in some sort of form of, and they're still around. I mean, they didn't implode; they just became assholes.
Yeah.
So I had 32 transactions in some form of either closing, approval, docs out, and money. I mean, they were just waiting to fund or just in process, and they decided it was the QC department because they just merged with another company. And I think in the background they were asking, okay, what's your biggest risk? Well, our biggest risk is at the time, it was 2012. They just went through the crash, is investment properties. And that's where we had all the people. They weren't investors, they were speculators. And that's what caused a lot of the problems of 2008 crash. Well, they said, well, let's just wipe out all of them. So what they do, they use this rapid acquisition bullshit as people buying too many properties. And then also it was some sort of affiliate. I can't remember the actual term, but it was almost like that you were affiliated with the seller. Well, it's because you have a property management agreement with them. Now you're doing more business with them. It was that kind of bull crap. Well, because you had a property management company.
Right.
I'm like, well, some of these guys aren't even using that property management. Well, they have the capability. So what they did was they found a reason to deny every loan. All of them. So I had to find a way to place them with another lender who would do it, and I would place it. But the problem is all the other lenders are freaking lazy. I gave them approved packages, but they wouldn't even communicate with the client. I had to communicate with the client. So I played middleman. I did all the talking. I did all the interaction. 32 transactions. I didn't make a single cent. All these other people got paid. They charged whatever interest rate they wanted to charge, and I had to sell it. It was back when I didn't have to be licensed at the time, but I'm the one who made all that stuff get done. And these guys got paid. I got nothing. Those 32 transactions.
These transactions of ours, I think half of them were probably ours. I believe
there was a lot of them that were yours.
Yeah, and I remember saying
it was a
when
lot.
you would call, I knew what you were doing. Most people don't understand the behind the scenes, but I've been doing this long enough where I understood what you were up to. And when you would call and you'd be like, dude, I have bad news. This is this. I remember just being so grateful and thankful that you were out there hustling on it instead of throwing your arms up.
Oh, it took
was
a special person, because that was even early in our turnkey days,
right.
because we used to do everything to keep for ourselves. Yeah. In that.
We had millions of dollars out on the line on them.
Yeah.
Literally.
And anybody could walk away and say, sorry, guys, we're not going to fund the deals.
Right.
But it goes back to the beard. It goes back to buying that house. That's not how I operate.
Mm-hmm.
It's never been how I operate. My dad always taught me, and my mom always taught me, you follow through with what you say you're going to do.
Right.
I grew up on a cattle ranch, man. Your word was your bond.
Yeah.
And so I closed every single one of those transactions. I kept a tally for a long time. I had this sticky note of what I was owed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually because I moved those to the other company, and there was another person who was the branch manager that she closed, I think, 12 of them under her name, and she was supposed to be able to hand deals over to me that she closed, put them under my name so I get paid. Never happened, right? So I was still due a significant amount of money on those, plus all the others that other people got paid. And the bottom line is I'll bet you I carried that for 10 years. And I finally got to a point one of these days I stared at that, it's like, I'm never going to get that money. And it's actually holding me up staring at this. I set that thing on fire and I threw it away, and I never thought about it again. Mm-hmm. And it was shortly after that the things really, really, really started to take off in 2015. And I went through some other stuff that dipped down, and I had a partner just rip everything apart.
You got
start
punched
over
in the
zero.
face repeatedly.
Over and
that
over
happened,
and over again.
which is a big blow to anyone in business. You got all of your loans yanked out from under you, no fault of your own, and then you got back on your feet like you do. You dusted yourself up. And the first thing that happened is you got punched right in the face as hard as I've ever seen again.
And not only did he take all the loans from me, I had to start over at zero, but he took my entire database from me. That guy's no longer in the business.
I'm not surprised.
He hasn't been in the business in a couple
Imagine
years.
that.
And it's amazing what happens when you do it for yourself versus for somebody else, how it changes. And now it went from, he was the gold standard. He was one that everybody, and believe me, I learned a lot from him. I would call him up and ask questions. He was a benevolent guy. Not until I started working with him directly to find out exactly how that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
When I was a competitor, he was easy to deal with. When I was not a competitor and it was inside his house, he took you apart. Well, now he's gone. He's no longer part of the thing, and I end up taking over pretty much all of that part of the industry. And I'm not trying to be a prick about this. Like I recently had a company call me who surveys the lenders across the country, all the people in the banks and the people that are licensed. 1.4 million people. They say I was ranked number 1 in the state of Arizona for transactions closed and total volume, and like number 6 in the United States. I didn't believe it till I saw the numbers. I'm like, how's that possible? Because I don't pay attention. I just get things done. And when I think about everything that's happened, those start over at zero 2-3 times, and the crap that's gone on, and I had people within the company I'm with now that was literally stealing from me and crap like that, and they've made it right, and they've backed me up to where I'm at today. I'm like, it really blows me away that I'm sitting where I am, but it's because of people like yourself, be able to build those relationships. We see each other go through hell, and we see the integrity of the other person, and it's like, well, I'm going to trust that guy.
Yeah.
We're going to do everything we can to continue to keep that business flowing, and it's because of that I'm afloat. It's not because I'm sexier or faster or any of these other things. It's really just because I refuse to give up, and it's 100% integrity all the time.
You're an old soul in a wild world, and it takes a lot for someone to own what is going on and do it with integrity, like you did. And I remember us being at an event where the three of us were at, And coming out of that bad period where when you were getting screwed over by the company you were working for, and then all of a sudden you had 5 loan processors in the back of the room at the
That's
event.
right.
And we were sitting right next to one another.
We were cheering
Scotty and
for
I
you,
were at
buddy.
a table very similar to this.
Yep.
And you had a long table with your entire staff. And I remember looking at Scotty and being like, man, I knew Chapman was like blowing up, but like, dude, he's got all these people here at the event and he says he needs more. And, we and him both, looked at one another and be like, you know what? It couldn't happen to a better guy. And later that night, the 3 of us and your wife were out eating steak.
Yep.
It was pretty incredible. So,
yeah, man, you dusted yourself off multiple times. You stood up with integrity every single time. You didn't take any of the easy roads, and then you took all of those lessons and you put in hours and hours and hours of work. You are at the top of the pyramid right now, and I know for a fact that you travel constantly building these relationships, making sure your clients have the connections they need for your clients to be successful, not just you. Everything you do seems to revolve around this client relationship and bettering other people's lives. It's interesting to me, the lack of selfishness in the manner in which you operate your business and how much that's benefited you. It's neat to see.
Well, I operated with selfishness at one point in my career, right? When you get early into the career and you're like, all of a sudden it starts to work. I remember because I came from the mines in New Mexico, and I've told you guys the story of how I got in this industry, and it was really an ass whooper when I got in there. So I make it into it, and then I'd heard, somebody told my mom, because she was in the real estate side of it, that once you make it 5 years, then it just goes up from there. Well, my 5th year, I'm making, pretty good 6 figures. I'm like, it goes up from here. So I got full of myself. I'm like, I'm the freaking man, right? I can't lose. And so I remember the time when it shifted.
Scott feels like that almost every hour.
And I can see that. Yeah, there's a reason why. You can't be that sexy and not feel that way, right?
That's what I say. You're preaching to the choir here.
Very honored to be sitting here, Scott.
You're welcome. You're welcome,
You adjust the
gentlemen.
rearview mirror on the car just so you look at yourself first before you put it where you can see.
Oh, I thought, is that for something else? I thought, wait, what do you use
got
it
all
for?
the visors down just
What
to
do
see
you
what's going
use your
on.
mirrors for?
I don't know how you can drive, right? If I had to stare at that every day.
I know.
Right? So the thing of it was, I figured if it goes up from there, and I remember event in Vegas, I'm standing on stage talking about a specific product, and there was a guy who was up before me. He was talking about investments in Nicaragua or some crap, and he was talking about the percentage return and calculating that. And I didn't like this guy. He was kind of a dumbass. He was an asshole, and so I got up on stage. And I was going to up him. And I talked about this transaction I did. It had a 3,000% return. So I did the numbers, and I called him out from the stage. So I calculate that, right? Kind of making him look dumb. Mm-hmm. And there was something about it. When it left my mouth, you felt a shift in the universe. It was a really weird shift. I literally felt it on stage. And when I stepped off stage, something was wrong in the world. And everything started going down from there in my world. And it kept going down until I had my motorcycle accident in 2008. And it was at that point when I woke up in a hospital after an 80-plus mile-per-hour accident with multiple broken bones and a memory that would only loop every 3 minutes, did you really start to decide whether or not you agreed with the person that you were?
Interesting.
When the whole world was, the volume of everything was turned down, and it's just you, and you're in that bed, and it's just, and I'm now confined to a wheelchair, and I couldn't remember stuff. I had still some memories.
So what are you saying that you were? There was like a certain arrogance about you.
Oh, it was
that,
ridiculous arrogance about
just,
me. I was a complete prick. Right? I was all about me. In fact, you and I talked earlier about working out, and you got young kids. And
right.
It's kind of hard to find the time. Like, I don't give a shit. I'm going to work out whether I want to, but it's her job to deal with the kids.
Right.
I was that kind of an individual. I was that way when it came to lending. I was that way when it came to everything. And then you get, it's like Tyson says, if you don't become humble, humbleness will be thrust upon you.
That is so true.
You can't find a more humble experience than have to rely on other people for damn near everything, right? So when you're debilitated to the point where I only had one good limb, right? Both my legs were shattered. I had a bunch of broken ribs, and this collarbone was snapped into 4 pieces. So I had taped this up. I had a collapsed lung. They had a tube that side. I only had one good arm, right? But I was still a pain in the ass enough that I'm like, you guys are not giving me a bedpan. Give me the wheelchair. I'll find my way to get this thing done. I was that kind of an individual. But all the things that I went through in that, I was reliant on a lot of other people. And then when I started to come back from that and I was able to walk again and I was able to go back to business, which was not easy to go back into a business after the crash of 2008 and 2009. And then, I had a memory that would only last 3 to 4 minutes, the majority of it, and learning how to walk again and all these things. And then, of course, the physical, not only the physical debilitation, I went in there at 190 pounds, probably 10 to 12% body fat. I got wheeled out at 156 pounds. I was a bone bag. And then you have the memory issues and you have all the other issues of learning how to walk again. And then my business is completely obliterated. I had 2 people left in the business that I worked with before on the real estate side. My mother, who was she's an ass whoop in real estate. She's 70 years old and she's still, if she sleeps, it's hanging upside down. And then I've got this, and that's the truth. The woman has got energy for days.
Yeah.
And I got this other gal, Carolyn Irby with Caldwell Banker, the same thing. She would just move deals. And they were so patient with me. They'd call me up. They'd tell me, hey, I just talked to this client. Can you get him pre-qualified? Cool. They'd call me back 5 minutes later. Did you write that down? I'm like, write what down? Get your pad, get your paper, write this down. And they were very patient with me to help me train my own memory back because I was too proud to go to somebody to get the training.
Yeah.
Right? I went to somebody to learn how to walk again, but outside of that, you can piss off. And I just carried a legal size notepad. I wrote everything down. It was amazing how many people I called a second time because I forget to cross their name out. I call them, hey, this is Aaron Chapman, such and such. And it's like, yeah, we just talked.
Yeah.
It's like, why don't you go to the computer and look my name up?
It was that bad.
It was that bad. But not everything, right? I mean, there's some things I remember. I remember in the hospital, I woke up naked on a slab. I'm like, and there's a rather attractive woman sitting there with a hand on a strategic area.
That just took you back to your teenage years.
Yeah, exactly. Foaming up my groin area. I'm like, well, did I break that? And she's like,
still got it.
She's like, no, I have to shave you. I'm like, shave me? She goes, yeah, we got to put a blood filter in. I said, well, do me a favor. She goes, what's that? And I remember this really explicitly. It's interesting. She's like, well, do me a favor. She goes, well, can you shave both sides so I look like an asshole? And then I remember asking, which again, me being me, and I'm on morphine. I mean, I'm pretty much open to say whatever. And it's like, if you ever have a need for the same, I get to repay the favor. That's the last I remember. So I remember waking up in my hospital room, like, did that just happen? Right? And so then I pulled back the gown. I was like, whoa, she gave me a strip. So I'm like, that did happen. Well, a few weeks later, I find myself in the same operating room. I'm looking around, and they have my neck pulled over, and they're prepping up my neck for something. I'm like, what are we doing here? And they're going to cut into my jugular, and they're going to run a line down it. And it has a little hook on it. They're going to grab that filter, which looks like a little badminton birdie with a hook on it that goes in from one side of your groin up to where both the veins come together and kind of that wishbone.
Okay.
And so it protects you from blood clots on both legs because they're both shattered. And they hook it and they just yank it out. And you're awake for the whole damn thing. As I'm laying there, they're prepping it up. I see this woman come in again. I'm like, wait a minute, don't I know you? She goes, yeah. She goes, I never heard from you. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, remember, dinner, concert? And I'm like, what are we talking about? And my wife was standing there in the room. She goes, I'm his wife. And they shook hands. And she's like, I'm sorry, I didn't know he was married. And the entire room's full of surgical assistants and nurses are like, oh, you're an asshole. I'm like, wait a minute. I think we hit third base.
Yeah.
Isn't that just, but I mean, that's kind of chivalrous to take him to dinner and a concert, right?
Correct. That's the progression, right?
So interesting. I do remember that. I remember getting. When
I'm sure your wife remembers it too.
Oh yeah, she tells the story just as often as I do. So there's certain things I do remember, but a lot of it's blank during that whole time. It's amazing.
Was your wife already a nurse then?
No, she was not. Actually, it's probably led her into nursing.
Yeah, that's what I wondered.
We led her to nursing as we did rescue for the sheriff's office. After that, I was big into mountain climbing and rock climbing.
That's the first time I ever saw you. Sorry, on TV.
Really?
We were. It was a rescue you did like the day before I talked to you.
That was the base jumper rescue that I was on TV for.
Yeah, I saw you on TV. That's what I knew what you looked like.
Yeah, there was a base jumper that got caught on an 1,100-foot cliff, and I got sent down to rescue him. It made it international news.
Yeah,
and I was on in Europe and whatever talking about this rescue, and that was a crazy night. Almost 2 hours hanging in a harness, getting down to this guy to get him and get him out. And what was really cool about that rescue, one, being the guy who was chosen to go down at that long of a, that's a big deal. People in the rescue world, that's like that would be their Shakespearean play, right? That'd be the biggest thing that could ever happen in their life. And I got like 5 of those type of rescues. And what was cool about that is my wife was one of the people that hiked up to the base to get to us as we were coming down to that to hike us out because it was a brutal hike out. She got her ass whooped coming up. And they had a worse job than I did. I had the easiest job of the whole thing. And so to be able to experience things like that with your spouse was really, really, really awesome. But she went through all that and became a paramedic, and she really enjoyed the the rescue aspect of it and the medical aspect. She went into nursing, and now she's what they call a SWAT nurse. She was a charge nurse in the ER. She's an absolute badass when it comes to the medical world.
Yeah, I figure you probably need a nurse in the family because, like, every other time I talk to you, you've rolled a vehicle. One of your Jeeps is on fire.
That's on YouTube.
You're climbing down a mountain to rescue somebody else that's dying. You know, it's probably good that you keep a nurse close by in your life.
And let's just say it's coming very, very handy to have a nurse close by. And I don't plan on getting injured ever again. I've broken 56 bones in my life. I had 8 concussions, and I'm done recovering. I spent 10 years of my life in recovery in some form or another. And when you're 48 years old, the body doesn't work the way it used to. And I've finally gotten back over the last year of really being able to work out and get in shape. And I'm never going back, if I can avoid it, to what it's like to have to heal again. Miserable. Yeah. Absolutely miserable. I'm going to take care of what I've got left. I have proven the durability of the body. It will take a lot of crap, so I don't need to prove anything else anymore. I just want to keep it in shape and feel good, and I feel awesome. I'll just tell everybody, if you're not in shape, man, work on that because you feel phenomenal. I feel awful. I've been nothing but
I feel awful all
absolutely,
the time. 100% of the time.
Pathetically terrible.
I just feel terrible.
But I want to go back to your instance in the hospital. I know we're buddies and we are jumping all over the place here. But you said that about the guy on stage and that you weren't very humble. So what was your path back coming out of the hospital? And like it sounded like you had like an aha moment, like where you wanted to, change your life, but at the same time you had a 3-minute memory. So like, what was the path back after this accident? Scotty and I know your success, now, but kind of bridge that gap, where you were changing your life, you were getting your memory back to being like the most successful investment, mortgage, broker in the nation. What's it look like?
So I had, of course, 4 kids, ranging, I believe, from 9 down to 2. I think Maggie was 2 years old.
Wow.
And I saw Maggie jump up onto my bed and do something really funny and jump off and did something else. And that's when it struck me. And this memory still sticks. I was like, I'm never going to see that again. That's the last time that's ever going to happen. And I was here to witness it. And I'm very, very happy that memory stuck.
Yeah.
So then I realized I've had 9 years with my oldest and 7 years with my second. I think it was 5 or 6 years with the next one, and then I had Maggie, who was 2. And how much did I miss? How much did I fail to pay attention to? When we got married very, very early. I got married at 21 years old.
We're going to flash a couple pictures up of this. It's not the same guy sitting in front of us right now.
Exactly. I don't recognize that son of a bitch either. Right? So my wife was 19. I was 21, right? And we didn't have to get married. We just decided to get married, right? And then 6 months later, we decided we were going to be married for 2 years before we even can entertain children. And within 6 months, she's pregnant. And we tried everything. Believe me, I had scuba gear. And I was like, apparently I bought the Chinese shit because it ripped. It must have. Because we took everything, all the chemicals, the scuba equipment, all that stuff to make sure it didn't happen. But yet still my son comes along. I was not ready to be a dad. I was not anticipating to be a dad. But I grew up in an environment where I was on a cattle ranch at 15 years old. Yeah. And I kind of took the place over at 17. My dad's like, hey, you take care of this. I'm doing this over here. And I've just been responsible all the time. I've never, ever had that teenage years or that college time. I went directly from that to the oil fields of Wyoming to running heavy equipment to driving truck to the mines to having a family and being responsible for other people. And I don't want to say I regret. There's no regret whatsoever. In a way, I was frustrated by it. I was angry by it, and I shouldn't have been, but I was. Because I was very, very selfish. It's like, what about me? What about the stuff that I need? And it's not about what I need, right? It's about the needs of other people. Sure, there's wants and there's needs. And I think everything's a want. There's only like 4 needs in the world. You need food, water, shelter, and air. That's what you need. Everything else should be a want. And my wife gets frustrated by that because we talk about our relationship. It's like, I don't need you. I don't need a wife. I don't need you as my specific wife.
Oh, that would not go over well in my house.
But
I'm just sitting here picturing like,
I know you're right now. You guys are going to probably mark this point on it and make sure wives don't hear this. But hear me out here with the need thing. I want to be with her, right? I want to be with my kids. I want to make it successful. It's a want for me, not a need. Because when it becomes a need, then it becomes something that you have to have.
It's an obligation.
Think about air.
Yeah.
Right? Think about air. If you get your air cut off, you're going to do whatever you can to get that air in there because it doesn't necessarily make your life better. It doesn't enhance it. It just gives you life. Right? Well, now you're being led around by this thing because you have to have it. When I think about that, I tell my wife, it's like, I don't want you to be with me because you have to be with me. It means you can be miserable because you have to be. Right? You're being forced, kind of like that whole arranged marriage shit.
Right.
Right? I'd rather you want to be. If I'm with somebody, I want that person to be with me, not need to be with me. I want that person to be with me. I don't want a person to have to because they need that charge because, I could be the most loathsome piece of shit, but now they have this need that I have to fill. So that's where I stand with that thing. And I realized that I wanted to be a person that understood what it was like to be a dad, a good dad to these kids. And I didn't know how to do that. And I think a lot of I did miss the boat, and I felt bad about that childhood that I missed. But I did enjoy a lot of things. There's some great memories with my kids, but it wasn't what it should have been. So because of, I hate to call it regret because I do have it, but I wanted to remedy that. Does it mean I've gotten better at it? Fuck no, I haven't gotten better at it. Right? In fact, I'm a grandfather now. I've got a grandchild I think she's 8 or 9 weeks old now. And I realized, wait a minute, I don't understand what it's like to be a dad till I become a granddad. And I go, wait a minute, now I get this father shit down, like understanding of that a little bit better.
But I think there's there's several different types of regret though. Like there's people that regret things that never did anything to change it. And I think that regret is different than people that have regret that they didn't change before they did, but they did change. So, I mean, there's something, to hang their hat on. I mean, I look back at my adolescence and early adulthood, and I had a period as a true adult where I was just an idiot.
Yeah.
We
all are in some form or another. Right. And it's,
and I regret that, but I'm not that person anymore. Some people, they carry that through their entire, adult lives.
Well, some people are so hell bent on being able to say, "Hey, you can't change, and I'll always be this person." It's like, and I do believe in certain aspects we don't change. I mean, let's just be honest. We're all 13 years old in the head.
We are.
When it comes to no matter how old you are, there's still that side of you that's that. But we change and evolve and become better. We don't want to. There's certain things we don't want to carry around as regret. And then you start seeing other people stepping in and helping you when you're debilitated. And you have to have this help for things. I remember this guy came over to my house. I met him at church one time. Talked one time. He comes over and brings me a stack of hunting videos. And his name's Keith Goyne. He's just an amazing dude. And I'm like, well, let's watch hunting videos. I don't know if you ever watched hunting videos high on Dilaudid and stuff. It's a lot better.
Pretty awesome.
It's definitely a lot better. In fact,
well, everything's better.
Everything's better. My brother-in-law brought me over this at 24. Don't watch 24 high on opiates. It was weird. It was really, really freaking weird. That first season was freaking strange. And I still remember, I don't even want to watch the second season. That first one was weird as hell on that stuff. I watched it all because you can't do anything else. God bless the people that came over and gave to me. In fact, one night my brother-in-law comes over with a big cooler full of stuff, and we sat there and played Halo for like 48 hours straight, or 24 hours or something. Yeah. I'm sitting in my wheelchair because I had nothing to do. Well, then Keith decided, he knew I liked to hunt, and that's why. And I hadn't been hunting since high school. And he's like, I'm going to get this guy back out and go hunting. So he brought me the videos, and then he paid for his personal trainer to be there with me when he was working out to train me to get back to where I can do stuff again physically. And then he took me hunting. Wow. And so people like that, a buddy of mine, George down the street, came over. He was mowing my lawn like crazy. This guy owned a multi-million-dollar business. He just took the time to mow my acre-plus lawn for me. Just people doing things, you start to realize there's more to life than what I want. There's more to life than me. There's other people out there, and they cared enough about me to take that time to do things for me. And I got to experience a lot of the things. Now I'm a hunting lunatic.
Yes, you
right?
are.
If it wasn't for Keith getting me back out there, I don't know if I would be. There's so many experiences I would not have because of a man took the time to say he's valuable enough to put the time into him. And because of that, that's why I believe that I am the person now, because I went through that hell. I had certain people rise up and become to me what I needed to make me the person that I am today. And I credit a lot of it to the people around me. And then, of course, you have to embrace it, right? You can't go back to being the asshole that you were before. And it's because of the environment that I was in. The people cared enough to show me that they cared. Therefore, I cared enough to one, accept. That's a tough thing for me to do, is accept from other people. And then I've got some business partners now, very good friends of mine, Joel and Floyd. And Joel opened up a lot of doors for me. And by walking through those doors, one, it created huge opportunity. I sit here today in front of you guys because of the opportunities he created for me. And I got forced through some growing experiences. But because of that, he trusted me and said, hey, if I open up a door, this guy's going to go through it. So now we've become some of the closest friends. I just spent 5 days down at he has an $8 million house on the beach in Costa Rica. He's like, you got to come spend time at my house. He's busted my balance for 3 years to come down there. I finally went down there. And he was so happy and so overjoyed that I showed up. And that, because I'm not a beach guy, but I spent the time and I immersed myself in the stuff. It's life-changing to have the right people in your life.
I picture you shirtless, hunting fish with a spear out there in the shallows, and
we didn't have
eating it raw.
Tom Hanks,
I would love to.
Castaway.
Yeah.
I'd love to. It'd been awesome, but we didn't have any of the spearfishing opportunity with Stormman or whatever else. I did the beach environment and just spent the time, and it was the first time in my life I decided to shut the brain off and just immerse myself in the environment, which I can do that hunting. Mm-hmm. That's why I think I gravitate to hunting so much, because when you're out there, you have to use all 5 senses to be successful in your hunt. So I can't think about mortgage. I can't think about the business.
Right.
When you're on the beach, you're thinking about everything but the damn beach because there's nothing else to do. But this time I actually enjoyed myself. I immersed myself in it. And the best part of it was Joel and how he responded to it, my wife and how she responded to it, my sister and brother-in-law, they were there. And just the time and the relationships that were enhanced by them, by being there.
It sounds like you need to fit more of that in your life from now on then.
100%. I don't disagree with that. I'm taking my wife to Cabo in a few months, and then I'm trying to do 2 to 3 trips a year now where it's just all centered around what she wants to do. I've done so damn much in my life about what I want to do.
Right.
This time I have to do it for somebody else and not for me.
Yeah.
And what ends crazy is how it becomes about me anyway.
Right.
I told you we ate lunch earlier. I'm reading this book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And, it's talking about what you kind of talked about before we went to lunch, how you got in last night and you didn't call us to go out and get steak and, have a drink. You needed kind of a Sabbath, if you will, to like collect your thoughts and, eliminate all the white noise that's going on, in our lives. And I personally think that's very important for people that are as busy as the 3 of us. Like, you got to shut it off, man. You got to
spend time with Aaron.
You got to be able to shut it off and collect your thoughts. And
I've got a Zen garden in my backyard with waterfalls and koi fish. And it reminds me, it's a beautiful thing to have. It's a complete waste of money, and it's an incredibly expensive hobby. It's incredibly expensive.
I got at the same point, not to interrupt you, I've got a refrigerator in my garage that's full of Busch Light.
Right. Which is not very expensive. Right? I chose poorly. Huh? I could have a safe full of money and Busch Light instead. But I sit out there, and it's amazing how I don't want to go inside and watch TV. I don't want to have a conversation with anyone over the waterfalls. It causes you to be very present and to relax and to let things go. And to me, it's magical. And the only other time that I've experienced that is scuba diving. Like when you were talking about hunting, I thought about scuba diving.
We're going to talk more about hunting right now also.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I want to get into this.
You want to get into hunting, or you want to get into talking about it?
I want to get into his hunting. We've seen a lot, but talk about the scuba diving.
Oh, no. Let's dive into hunting. That's more interesting. But I mean, that moment when you can be yourself and not be thinking about work and just be present, it's neat when you find something that helps you do that. And it sounds like hunting's that for you.
Yeah.
So
my intro, kind of, referenced Bear Grylls and Walter Mitty and everyone rolled into one. And I can't think of a better picture. We're going to flash it up right now. You sending Scotty and I a picture of a grizzly bear, and you lifting its head up, with your gun in hand, and
that's when Scott sent me that picture. What was that? The Burt Reynolds freaking picture.
I photoshopped your face onto Burt Reynolds on a bear rug shirtless.
That's right. But whenever we got that picture, I remember looking at Scotty and I'm like, man, he's so much more of a man than I am. Yeah. But I want to talk about that. We're talking a full on grizzly bear, here that you kill. We talked at lunch about your moose hunting and all this, but Just spill the beans. Tell us about it.
Well, Alaska's definitely my happy place. So again, back to those buddies I was talking about, Joel and Floyd. They said, "Hey, we got this opportunity to go bear hunting in Alaska. They got an extra couple of spots on this guide's boat. You guys want to come?" Like, oh, I'm in. And the price was awesome, so we went, and you got to spend time with two my best friends. They're basically my brothers, and what was interesting about that trip, we fly up there, we board the boat, and we're going to steam off from Wrangell, Alaska, to around Prince of Wales Island and over to Kosciuszko, I think is how you say it, and we're going to hunt both those two islands. And as we're steaming away, the captain says, "Oh, by the way, in 10 minutes, you're not going to have signal, so you better say goodbye to everybody." I'm like, you should have told me that shit like days ago, because now
sounds amazing.
Because I've got all these people I do business with, and I was just bam, text. I was just going crazy with all the text, trying to hammer it all out, and then all of a sudden the signal was dead. I'm like, okay,
right,
nothing I can do now. Just enjoy it. So I climbed up on top of the bridge, and we watched this cruise out there. We picked up a couple of boats at another little port, and we hauled off to where we're going to hunt. And we dropped anchor in this bay, and you're sitting in this bay. You're sleeping on the boat, but we're jumping on two other boats to go hunt. You're hunting from the water. And these guys were amazing at how they could see bear from 50, it's probably 500 yards out, hauling across the water. Oh, there's a bear, and then rip into a cove. You jump off, hike over. And that's what we did. We hiked over, found this bear. He was a big son of a bitch. I popped him. we cut him up. And
I popped him.
Yeah. Well, it was.
Did you give away the meat, or did you take?
No, we ate some of the stuff there, and we gave away some of the other stuff. It was mainly the hides and some of the meat that we took and cooked up on site, and it was. Ended up with an awesome bear rug out of that thing, and it was.
That's what I was getting. You have the bear
rug in my place in Missouri, right?
Oh,
and it was. I wish it was grizzly. It was black bear on this one, because if it's grizzly, it'd be like 5 times as much to go hunting grizzly. But it was a big ass black bear.
Yeah.
Right. And so actually, when we brought these in, everybody got bear that year, and we went into to the fishing game. When they measured mine up, it's like, this is the biggest black bear we've seen this year.
Wow.
It was awesome. Well, then we go back.
I know enough to tell that was a
big son of a bitch of a black bear, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was basically, it's like, are you sure that shouldn't be browner? Because it was such a big bear.
Right.
And then we went back the next year, which was this was even more interesting. So the next year, I took Keith. Keith's my buddy that I was telling you about that helped me rehabilitate. I'm like, hey, you're going to come with us this time. We had different open spots, so I brought Keith. And Keith and I are on the plane ready to take off, and my buddy Joel calls up. He goes, "Where are you at?" It's like, "I'm on the plane ready to go to Alaska." And he goes, "You may want to potentially get off the plane." I'm like, "Why is that?" He goes, our guide, Charlie, he just got boarded by the fishing game. He shut down. I'm like, "Oh, son of a bitch," right? I was like, "Well, I'm going." He goes, "Well, why is that?" He goes, I didn't know what to expect the first year. I don't know what to expect now, so I'm just going to go and figure it out, because Alaska, to me, it's my solace. And Alaska is such an amazing place to go. I'm like, I'd rather not know what I'm getting into going into Alaska. So we flew out. We landed, and it was a shit show, right? The first night, they're like, "We don't know what we can do." So they talked to a lot of locals. They got us some trucks and some quads so we can hunt Wrangell Island, and they got us some tags. We went, hunted Wrangell, found nothing. But then by the next
guide, you just
no guide, because he can't be guided now because he's shut down. So then we were able to work out with Fish and Game that it was legal for us to borrow his boats as long as we didn't give him money. So we had these two 20-foot aluminum offshore boats, and we went hunting on different directions. Me and Keith in one boat, and Joel, Floyd, and this guy Blake on another boat. We took off different directions, right? Well, we come back in that night, and Keith's the one running the boat. I'm not driving anybody else's boat. That's just not how I operate. And he's coming in a little hot into the marina. Now, this is a marina where big fishing boats are at. It's a big son of a bitch. And so we're talking about the depth of this place, like 15 to 20 feet. Well, he's coming in. I'm up on the front of the boat, just kind of deflecting in case he hits the dock. And I'm like, we don't want to damage their boats. And he's coming a little hot. I put my foot out, but he found reversed. He dumped my ass. Well, I have all rain gear on. I've got those big heavy boots on, the rubber boots, and I had other gear on me. And I probably weighed 25 plus pounds more than I normally did walking around.
Yeah.
Then I filled up with water. And when I hit the bottom of that silty bottom, I just punched off of that bottom. I'm swimming like crazy. When I broke the surface, I was able to grab the dock. I was holding onto it with my right arm, and I'd already torn that shoulder from another incident, hunting, incidentally enough. But then Blake runs over, and then Floyd comes over, and they grab my arm. They're yanking me out, and I heard it tearing because it tore my bicep tendon that was going across the top, and it further tore my what they call the labrum, the cup, where the socket is. But they got me out, got cleaned up, went back to hunting the next day, Still found nothing. Well, the next day, Floyd's driving the boat, and he's coming into an area, and he's watching the maps and stuff, and he ended up running it aground on because the tide was out, and Blake was on the front of the boat, which you shouldn't do, and he launched out of it.
Yeah.
Well, I sunk like a rock, and he was dressed the same way I was, but luckily he's just paddling like crazy to stay on top of the surface. Joel runs out to check and see where's Blake at. He finally had to tell Blake, calm down and stand up, because he was standing on. He was at 3 feet.
It sounds like the Three Stooges go hunting in Alaska.
It was freaking wild, right? So to get him inside, we had to tow them out because they were hung up on the rocks because you couldn't see the rocks. It's about that deep. And according to the map, all that stuff, he was off of where the rocks should have been. So it was just one of those crazy situations. Well, so that was day 2, right? And then day 3. These guys shear something off in their motor. We had to tow them back for 9 hours, right, to get them back. And they're like, we're done with this crap. Last day of hunting, it was just me and Blake. We took off. Keith's sick. We took off. We went hunting around these islands. And as we're out there, I looked across, and I could see a black spot at one of the cove on the other island across the channel. I'm like, dude, there's a bear out there. Let's go after that bear. And he hauled ass all over there, and I kept watching like it was a bear. There's a big bear in this cove. I'm like, cool, go into the cove over next to it. We'll park the boat. We'll haul ass over there to get that bear. We parked the boat. I handed Blake his gun. So you go get the bear because you haven't been hunting here yet. I have one. I will catch you. I pulled the boat up onto, and it's a big boat. It's a 22-foot boat. Onto shore. I stretched the anchor out. I grabbed a big-ass rock. I set it on the anchor, and I took off. Grabbed my gun, and I hauled after him. Actually, I borrowed somebody else's gun because I was bow hunting that year, but I grabbed a gun to back him up. Ran over there to follow him. He's getting up where we saw where the bear was. I'm like, dude, you go. I will watch and I'll guide you in. You go over, and what we had to do is had to get close up to the tree line and come up. There's a little stream coming out of the trees. Get up above him and just shoot him down. He was down the stream bed. It'd been easy to do. He gets right up on it, and he stops and comes all the way back to the beach, and then comes around that. I'm like, what are you doing? By that time, the bear went into the trees. So it's like, what are you doing, man? He goes, well, if I got right up on top of him, he might maul me. I'm like, that's why you have a gun.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, whatever. Let's just go back.
Are you carrying a sidearm?
Oh, yeah. I always carry a 44 mag.
Oh,
at the time, I had a 44 mag. Now I carry what they call as a Ruger Alaskan. It's the 454 Casull.
Yeah, I know.
So I carry that. So we hike back to the boat.
I thought you were more of a 10-millimeter Glock guy.
Well, you would have thought, but
yeah.
I like a wheel gun when I'm out there.
Sure.
When it comes to bears. Right?
I don't blame you.
I don't want to have any sort of issue.
Correct.
So I'm out there with, and you're not going to have an issue with the Glock's greatest gun out there, but I'd rather have something like a Magnum that's going to, I want to kill it, gut it, and cook it with one shot. So we hike back to the boat, and the boat's in the middle of the cove. So I looked at Blake. I'm like, we're Rochambeauing for it, dude. He goes, is it best out of 1 or best out of 3? I'm like, best out of 1. And we both hit paper the first 2 times, and then I lost. I'm like, well, I'm going swimming again. Stripped down and swam out to the boat. I mean, it's April. It's early April or late March, and there were storms coming in. So it was like 40-some-odd degree water. Freezing my ass off, get to the boat. I'm shaking, getting myself up into this thing, and the anchor is still under the rock. That much tide had come in an hour, and the front of the boat was dipping down because it's pulling on the anchor. So I just grabbed the anchor rope and popped it real quick, and it pulled right out. Turned on the depth finder, and I think it was like 15 feet. So it was on ground, and 15 feet of tide had come in an hour.
So then everybody had to swim to get back on the boat.
No, because then I started up and took it over the Blake. But then it hit me as I pulled it all in. We got him in as we're driving.
I see what you're saying.
Clint and I would have said, life is over. We're just dead. We're just going to die here.
Yeah, I would have had a DiCaprio type moment with the bear, like in The Revenant. He would have had his way with me.
Well, to me, that would have been an interesting environment something interesting to experience. It's another story, right? But in this scenario, we're driving back. Blake's driving it. I'm freezing my ass off. I put on my rain gear to try and get a little bit of the windbreak off of me. Yeah. And as I got to think, it's like, if he shot that bear, we would have gutted it out there. We'd have taken some pictures, then hiked back to the boat. More tide would have come in, and it probably would have popped that anchor because it didn't take much. That sumbitch would have floated away. Now, would it have floated inland? Maybe. If not, it could have floated out. We could have been stuck there with a dead bear on an island covered with bears, right? So this could have been really, really, really ugly. And if somebody wants to see where that boat is, go to my website, aaronchapman.com. You're going to find across the top, there's a spot that says, where's Aaron? Click on that, scroll down to the very last. There's only 3 stories there. And you click on that, and you can see there's a picture of where that boat is. It was crazy where it is. So I ended up going swimming twice on that particular trip. Well, then that was how that one ended. Nobody got a bear, but it was a hell of a story. Well, then we ended up going back for a moose hunt just this last year. So my buddy Larry Atch, former leader of SEAL Team 3. We've got a couple guys from OUR, Operation Underground Railroad. We work with them on combating human trafficking. And the same guys, Blake, Joel, and Floyd. And we brought a cameraman.
These are guys going around the country literally kicking in doors and saving kids.
Well, and what they're doing is they're infiltrating that across the world by pretending to be buyers of children. It's amazing how
these are hardcore operators.
The more pale your skin, the better chance that people will trust that you're going to buy kids, because Americans are the highest consumer of child pornography and child sex. It's amazingly disgusting to me to understand that that's what's happening within our country, because we've become that kind of people. That when you go into other countries, people immediately see your pale skin and like, oh, you want some girls? And you see a lot of the videos and a lot of the operational, because I get to see a lot of their operations, the breakdowns, stuff like that, and what's going on there as a person who's working with them on the finance side. It's amazing how often they're being approached. They will approach you to buy kids, but they're approaching you with a young boy to purchase. That seems to be the product of enticement, and I'm really, really disturbed by what people are doing. So we raised a lot of capital for that. We've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars to try and help offset that. Now it's actually even getting harder to raise capital because the market's tougher, right? There's not as much money flowing, so it's hurting them and their operations. And we're working.
What organization is that?
Operation Underground Railroad.
Okay.
What you need to do is look up Operation Toussaint, Toussaint, on Amazon Prime. Tells you the history of Tim Ballard, a very, very close friend of mine who started all this. Formerly, initially CIA, and then he went to Homeland Security and he was working on the border, and that's how he broke into dealing with the human trafficking thing because of what was going on the border. Yeah. And then he got asked from the religious side of things, like, hey, we got a member of our faith that is down here in this church, and he was at one of our buildings, and his kid got taken by one of his friends and got sold, and can you help him out? He couldn't help him from being a government employee, but he could start a nonprofit. And that's how it all blew up from there.
That's awesome.
So they're doing some amazing things there, and I just encourage people, every time you close a transaction, just donate $50. That's it.
Right. We'll have the links down below in this video.
Perfect. Well, so I had those guys out there. We did the moose hunt, and it was awesome, because what we did is we flew in from Anchorage. We flew into Anchorage and all met up, and then from there we rented these little King Airs. I think it was 10-seater King Air, and we flew over to Russian Mission, Alaska, which is a little Inuit town off of the Yukon River. And you had to get permission to land because they just don't let anybody else land. And then we'd made deals with local guys there. We paid them to take us upriver and drop us off. We paid to stay in there in these cabins they had on native land. And then we would post up from there and take boats and just cruise around the river and go hunt. And we got 6 moose in 6 days. And in doing that, when you take one down, I don't know if you guys have ever shot a moose, but these things are...
No.
I shot a squirrel.
Well, if it has big antlers, you'll know what I'm talking about, the squirrel, right? But my buddy Floyd is 6'4", or 6'3", 6'4", and we had one moose on its back, and he's holding the hind leg, right? He's holding the hind leg, and the hoof is that far above his head. Yeah, that's the hind leg, right? The front legs are even taller because you got the shoulders and you got the head. These things are easy 10 to probably 12 feet standing up at the ankles when they're just standing up, and
I just got pretty close to one. I just got back from Jackson Hole and Yellowstone, and they come up to the lodge, like to the front door of the lodge.
They're massive animals. And the Wyoming moose is smaller than the Alaskan moose.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Which is what's really crazy. You don't know that until you talk to some people.
I was in a Chevy Tahoe rental car, and I had to look out of my car up to see its head.
I mean, I think you actually probably have to look at
it's like a horse.
Belly. Yeah. Right? Because they're so damn big.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the Alaskan moose. You have to look up to see their belly if you're in a vehicle. Right. And so when we started to I figured, okay, I'll just pay the native guys. They're just there. We're the ones doing our own hunting. We're not guided, but I can pay them maybe to skin them out and cut them up. We decided not to do that. I started doing some of that, and I found that became what I was really, really interested in. I enjoyed skinning and quartering them and literally deboning them in the field, and we pack all the meat out. Because think about our business right now. From day to day, you don't see progress. The only thing you see is we got the contract and we have the closing. You don't see the progress in the middle. It's kind of frustrating. But to stand there and you've got a 1,500 or 1,800 pound animal laying right there, and you get to see the progress of every knife stroke, it became addictive. So I got involved in 5 of the 6 basically, we were talking about the skinning and the quartering and the deboning. I got involved in all of it except for one, Larry's moose.
Wow.
I was
So
involved
you
for
processed
the shoot,
5 mises.
Mises, right? In 6 days.
Yeah.
Right? The only one I didn't really process was or involved heavy in the process was Larry's, because he went back with some guys while I was hunting, and I was doing my own at the same time he was cutting his up.
Did you save the hides?
Save we saved the hides and the heads and that kind of thing. I didn't save the hide on mine because I mouthed off again. You mouth off. We're sitting around the
Weird.
Sitting around the the campfire the night before I shot mine. Everybody's like, man, where am I going? They're talking about where they're going to hang their trophy at, and it's going to want it to be this big. And I got this spot where they said, what about yours, Chapman? Where are you going to hang yours? I'm like, dude, I don't care if the thing's antlers are as big as my hands. I don't give a damn. Right? If it's a big-bodied young moose, I'll shoot that. What do you think walked out literally within the first hour the next day?
Yeah.
Joel is with me, goes, there's your moose. I'm like, son of a bitch. So I popped him. He had a big body on him. And so, in fact, we can post up the picture if you want to do. The heart on that thing was as big as my chest. The thing was massive. And the meat was amazing. So while we're out there.
Did you eat the heart?
I ate the heart. We ate the heart. In fact, you get what they call the caul fat, which wraps around the organs. It's a webbing of fat. You cut up the heart and you wrap it around it real thick, 4 or 5 wraps, and you cook that. It's freaking amazing.
Like over a campfire or an iron?
Over the campfire. Yeah, we did the campfire. Larry did most of the cooking, and I did a lot of the cutting. In fact, one of them was shot in camp because Nate from OUR got up to go take a leak in the morning. He didn't get light till like 9 a.m. So he's getting up and he's walking around. He's putting his shoes on. He's hearing something. He's looking around. So he racked around his 300 Win Mag, and then he gets his light going, and here's this moose standing like 15 feet from him, and it charged, and he just yanked the gun up quickly and shot, and it skidded to a stop within a few feet of him. Oh, shit. It's laying there right next to our cabin. I come tearing out because I slept with a 44 Magnum. Because let's just say sleeping close to the natives was not a fun thing. Those guys were insane, crazy insane. And I can't begin to tell you how crazy insane that was.
So it wasn't for the wildlife; it was for the.
It was for the locals. Yeah, because of the crazy shit going on with the locals. So, and of course the wildlife. And we're living. The moose is the most dangerous land animal to man next to the hippo.
Yeah.
And then you're in grizzly country and you're in wolf country. So I wasn't going to mess around.
Seriously?
Oh yeah.
I had no idea.
There's more people stomped and killed by moose than any other animal in North America. You look up the statistics.
I never would have thought
it's crazy.
That.
Well, that one charged Nate.
Well, there's a certain time of year where they're extremely aggressive, right?
Well, there's also, from what I understand, a parasite that gets into their brain, and they're very docile from it, and then they go crazy. In fact, there was reports. I remember as a kid, an engineer for, I think it was Santa Fe Railroad, or it was one of the Pacific something Pacific Railroad,
Union Pacific
Railroad, where he could see a moose down the track pawing and come running straight at the train. And when that moose hit the train, he actually felt it nudge.
Wow.
That's how big an animal we're talking here.
Well, I could do that.
So, yeah, no kidding. Well, you may need a couple shots before you do that. So I end up processing most of that moose laying there at camp. And as I'm cutting it up, Larry's over there cooking it up. He's just feeding me. So I got my buddies here feeding me as I'm cutting up. I'm just elbow deep in blood. In fact, I'm wearing this watch while I'm out there. I got what was it? I think it was a $10,000 Omega covered in blood and guts. In fact, I had to have it worked on recently because there was moose blood that was stopping it from working. He had to steam out, and I just got it back in the last week. He's like, dude, there's something in there that was causing
every time that happened to
me.
I know.
My Omegas are always getting like shark blood in them. It's usually shark blood's the worst. But,
well, I just figured, it's supposed to be a good tennis watch. How does it do with hunting, right? So I forgot that I had it on. I ended up taking it moose hunting with me. But
those are questions that real people have.
Now they know.
They've got to be answered.
Right.
Now they know. We got pictures of this thing just covered in blood and guts and chunks of meat inside the Omega.
I don't know
how this does.
I don't know that Rolex is going to hold up.
Get in there and see what happens.
So then we discovered if you throw the femurs on the fire and cook those up, crack them open, man, that was the best eating we've ever had.
So just right off the bone,
the bone marrow right on top of the steak.
I can
probably
see
the
that.
coolest thing we had happen to us out there is Joel shot his moose out in the marsh. It was probably about 1.5 miles from shore. And it's laying in the marsh. I'm like, what are we going to do to get out of the marsh? We flipped it onto his back, and the water was probably about 6 inches deep, but not enough to get into the cavity. So we gutted it out and let it cool that night. And me and Larry sat out on the campfire, and I was like, how are we going to get it out of the marsh? Because we don't have any anchors anywhere nearby. I have this rope system that I brought. It's called the CMC Rescue Omni Aztec kit. It's a little compact pulley system we use for rescue. I brought one, and so did Joel and Floyd, because we might need those, because they say you bring come-alongs. So I brought this because I can move a lot more weight with a lot less because it's more compact.
They say to bring come-alongs
because you might have to ratchet it out of the marsh.
Well, that was your nickname in high school, wasn't it?
Come along.
I thought it was.
Here comes come along.
For a whole lot of other reasons.
Everybody hide the women and children. Here comes come along.
I thought it was come along.
That was.
That's awesome.
That's what I had heard. At least I read that on Wikipedia.
It's there's been a lot of laughs. My gut is aching from all the laughter. We're three children, but
it's 13 years old with money.
It's good to know that we haven't had you in our city for 4 years, but we haven't missed a beat. It's like we've been like kids in the candy store for the last week and a half, knowing that you were coming. So it's awesome to have you here. We want our audience to know everything about Aaron Chapman, your story, and your success. You are, I'm pretty sure, the most successful investment mortgage broker in the country. We know most of them, and we know your production. We want to get into that, but first of all, tell us a little bit about Aaron Chapman.
Well, first off, thanks for inviting me out. Actually, no, you guys say we want to be on. Would like to have you on the podcast. I'm like, well, I'm just going to come to you, right? Because of that 4-year gap. What's really interesting about that 4-year gap, it doesn't feel like 4 years conversationally, because there's just a few people in this world that you can have a 4-year gap but pick up as if it was yesterday. So thank you guys for being those people that I can have that kind of connection.
Pleasure's all on this side of the table.
Well, I can imagine. Yes. We can't see your hands. I'm sure
That's right. That's right.
So Aaron Chapman, I get a lot of people ask me, it's like, where'd you get your degree at? Where'd you go to school at? And they're really surprised when I tell them I cheated my ass off to get that C in high school. If I couldn't pick a lock, there's no way I would have graduated, right? And I spent more time hunting and snowboarding and off-roading during high school than I did actually showing up to school. And from there, I grew up on, spent my high school years on a cattle ranch, and you get to learn about business in an interesting way, because the business plan associated with farming and cattle ranching is very, very simple, but it's the most effective plan out there. You don't realize what you're learning until you try and apply it later in life. I went from there to the oil fields of Wyoming, working for a welding company. From there to running heavy equipment, to driving truck, and then I ended up in the mines in northern New Mexico with my dad, which was awesome, right? Because we sold the ranch, partnership went sideways. My dad's an Irishman, it doesn't take much for him. It's like, I'm hell with this crap, right? And so we went back to mining, and we were mining molybdenum. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. You guys know what chromoly is? You're familiar with chromoly? So moly is molybdenum. That's the additive. You get chromium with steel and molybdenum, you get chromoly. So we're several hundred feet underground. You have what looks like a 90-pound jackhammer with a 6-foot-long drill bit on it that rotates, and you're holding this up with this leg that will telescope, and you're drilling into the wall. And then you got to take the pressure off the leg. You got to pick this up. It's 160 pounds total, and pull it out and do it again. About 32 holes you drill in this, and you'd load it up with explosives, 6 foot deep. So you're putting, 6 sticks of dynamite in there, and you're timing all of this. You have to put the right kind of blasting caps and timers. You bundle it all together. You step around the corner, you blow that sumbitch up, and then you dig it all out. You support the ground. You do it again. It's called a cycle. My 21st day underground.
We sure had it easy in life hearing this.
Well, I loved it. It was such a great job because it was just you and the rock. That's it. You didn't have any bullshit. There was no emotion. There's no drama in life. It's just, does your machine work? If it breaks down, you get another one, right? And you just keep going. Well, my 21st day underground, I did what you called cycle aheading, right? If you walk into it and it needs to be drilled, you mark it all up, you drill it, you blast it, you dig it all out, you support it, and you start to drill again. That's a full cycle. 21st day underground, I cycled a heading, and everybody's congratulating me because it was a really big deal. Come back to the surface, and the shift boss is like, it was my second round of shifts. He's like, I've been doing this for 40 some odd years. I've never seen a guy be able to cycle a heading in less than 6 months experience, and you did it your 21st day. He goes, you're a miner now. Slapped me on the back, you could get miner pay. And I went to what they call the dry, which is the shower room, the locker room, whatever, and my dad and the other underground shift boss stayed in the room. They talked, and I got to hear the synopsis of that talk later, and they're like, hey, your son's your partner underground. He's not your helper anymore. He's your partner. And that was a big deal to me, to my dad's partner. And I remember being underground now drilling 2 different directions. Pop running one heading, me running the other heading. We're doing we're teeing off these 2 new networks of tunnels, and the general mine superintendent walks through, and you see the lights because they communicate with your light. And I shut down, and I hear them talking. And my pop's like, well, my partner and I are doing this and this and this. To me, that was the pinnacle of my life. to be called my dad's partner. Mm-hmm. So I heard about those guys growing up because my dad worked in the mines ever since I was a child, actually before I was born. Well, then they shut down that project and they let me go because I was one of the newer guys. I went back to Arizona thinking, I got a wife, I got my son, I can get a job anywhere. I got cattle ranching, welding, mining, heavy equipment, driving truck, easy. Everything I applied for, I kept giving me this bullshit excuse of overqualified. It didn't make any sense to me. You're either qualified or you're not. What does overqualified mean? Well, later on in life, I now understand what that means now that I run businesses. But I got to the point where I was willing to take on a $10 an hour truck driving job to haul landscape rock because I was freaking broke. As I left that day to go apply for this job, my wife, to apply, they didn't have a computer application. You had to fill it out and hand it in back then in 97. My wife hands me a coupon for free diapers because we were out of diapers and we had zero money. Walked into this place. It was a landscape company in Phoenix. They, again, turned me down for overqualified. 23 years old, I'm shedding tears. I go out to my truck. I'm like, what am I going to do? All I can do is just keep going forward. Fired up my truck. I'm heading to this grocery store and my gas light comes on. Never driven my truck long enough to know how long that gas light would stay on and me still be able to drive. So I found the first grocery store that had a gas station outside. I pulled up to that gas station, pulled out my debit card. That's all I had. I said a quick prayer and I swiped that debit card. I got a decline. So I didn't think my prayer worked. Rifled through my truck looking for maybe a lost dollar. Because back then gas was like 89 cents a gallon. Found a couple coins, locked the door. I started walking that parking lot. And what felt like a couple of hours. You're walking around, you're looking, there's nobody looking at you. You find a coin, you drop down real quick, you pick it up. Any coin, pennies, it didn't matter, you grab it. Then I got enough of a amount of change that I was able to exchange those couple of hours for a couple gallons of gas. Then I went straight into the grocery store. I found the corresponding diapers with the coupon, go stand in line, right, with my one item, and then the pressure's building as I'm waiting to get up to that checker, and I set that on the belt. It comes up to her, and she gives me the thing, and I hand her a coupon. Felt really shitty, man. The one thing that I had to buy and I need a coupon for it. So I hurried up, I got my item, and I got out of there as fast as I can. As I'm walking out, keeping my head down, I heard somebody call my name. And I look over, and there's this guy, Keith, standing there. He's like, hey, how's it going? And he used to be the guy who ran the office, the place I used to run heavy equipment for, digging swimming pools years before. And I rehearsed to him what I just rehearsed to you. And he's like, let's go to dinner. I'm like, dude, I can't afford dinner. It's like, dude, I'm standing here, have to use a coupon to get diapers, for crap's sake. He goes, no, I got a gift certificate for Red Lobster. It was before gift cards. Mm-hmm. So like, cool. He goes, bring your wife. So a couple of days later, he took us out to dinner, and that's where he told me about the mortgage industry. And he slid me a card for a branch manager of a broker shop there in Mesa, Arizona. I'm like, dude, I don't know anything about this mortgage thing. He goes, you don't have to. He goes, you were great with the customers. Everybody liked you. You just have to be good with people. I'm like, dude, there's math involved in this. I cheated my ass off to get that C in high school. I engineered my C. He goes, dude, you'll figure it out. So I cut a foot off of my hair. I shaved. My mom bought me some business-like clothes. So I went and applied for this job, and they hired me as a telemarketer in December of 1997. That's how I started. And I've heard it said before that people go in the mortgage industry as a loan officer because you can't get a job anywhere else. And I can attest to that. I couldn't get a job anywhere else. But then right after I started that telemarketing job, about a week later, I got a job as a driving over-the-road truck to Sacramento and back, and then Vegas and back. Let me just tell you, driving truck through California is the most miserable experience of your life.
Oh, I bet.
And I got out of that in 3 months and went back to running heavy equipment. They started a new crew for me because they're busy enough at one of the companies I used to work for. So I get up at 3 a.m., be at the yard by 4. Actually, the job start by 4. Be done by noon or 1, get to the office by 2, and work till 10 p.m. every day until the rates drop below 7% for people, for owner-occupied loans. And I did enough loans at that point, got enough of my pipeline that I could replace my income of $50,000. And that's how I really got going. And I remember prayerfully just spending time on my knees the entire time, just talking to God. It's like, I need something to happen. I remember that feeling that came over. It's like, now's the time. Because before I get that kind of a feeling of doubt, when you're thinking, can I do it now? Can I do it now? Can I do it now? And I'd present this thing. I mean, I was like presenting it to God. It's like, this is how I think I can make this happen. And I get that feeling of doubt. And I heard that somebody said that when you get what they call a stupor of thought or doubt, that it's not right. So I tried to listen to those feelings. I didn't want to go back to that day of picking up change. I didn't want to go back to that day of carrying a coupon. And I never looked back. And it all worked out. And I get to thinking about that day. Well, one, I thought my prayer was unanswered, but it was really the most answered prayer I've ever had. Mm-hmm. I prayed that my card would work, but if it worked, where would I be? The other is, if I found change faster, if more people dropped coins, I would have gotten out of there quicker and never saw Keith. Yeah. Right. But if I was out there longer, still looking for change, I'd have been out there longer and I would never seen Keith. It all worked out perfectly. And where do I sit now? You just said it. I'm ranked number 1 in my state. I would venture to guess I'm the number 1 producer in the real estate investment space. And I'm ranked I believe, in the top 10 in the United States out of 1.4 million people that do the type of job that I do. And I attributed that to other people in relationships. And it was a relationship that created the opportunity. And it's relationships that continue the opportunity, right? Sitting here with you guys, it's because of relationship. And it wasn't the most easy relationship. We went through some shit together.
Yeah.
And as a result of
the opposite.
How we interacted together is what allows you to sit me in this chair today. And I appreciate that, and I don't take that kind of thing lightly.
I think it's your ability to overcome obstacles that really define you as a person.
I think the ability to overcome obstacles defines anybody as a person, right? There's 2 types of people in this world. There's those that can take a beating and get back up and keep moving. There's those that are going to take a beating and lay there and lick their wounds. So I like to say that there's this big ominous foot that gets up and kicks your ass every day, all day.
Right.
I get up at 4:30 in the morning because I believe the foot gets up at 7:30. So people that get up at 7:45 because they got to be to work at 8, they're already getting the shit kicked out of them the entire day. It's like, my day is a mess. Well, you woke up after the foot did. It's continuing to kick your ass the whole time, right?
That's great.
I'm up so early before the foot that somebody just has no idea where I'm at, right? It's hunting me all day long.
Before the devil knows your feet hit the ground.
100%. But now and again, you cross paths with the foot anyway, right? And it kicks your ass. But what I found is sometimes when it kicks you, because if it catches, like, oh, fuck yeah, I'm going to kick Aaron. And it gets me, and it gets me really good. But when I land, as long as I land and I bounce right to my feet, I'm further ahead than I would have been because now it propelled me. But it's the guy who takes that beating and lays there, and the whole world in production passes it by because you're still laying there. And, take all the things that we've talked about before about what happened with that other company and what happened with that business partner of mine, all these people that kicked me or got the foot involved in kicking me. When I jumped up and kept going, it advanced me significantly from where I would have been had the foot never been there to kick me.
Right.
You want to get ahead in life, wake up before the foot.
100%.
Love it.
And here's I find it interesting. I think a lot of young folks who see people successful in the real estate industry and in the mortgage industry, they think we got here easily or we came from money. I don't think people understand how many times that foot has kicked us in the teeth on our way up. To the top.
Over and over.
And, we can sit here across from each other attesting to it because we've been through it together so many times, knocked on our butts and we get up, we dust ourselves off. This is not an easy path.
And I love how people say that, say it must be nice, right?
Yeah.
That statement infuriates me. It's like, really, let's sit down and talk about what must be nice. And I'll tell them about the story of how I got started.
Right.
I'll tell them about the story of 2008 when I got my accident. It's like, if you can tell me that it's nice to wake up in a hospital with both your legs shattered, with you were worth, say, just short of $3 million the day before. You're at about 190 pounds, 12% body fat, best shape of your life. Now you're 156 pounds. You can't walk. You have a memory that lasts for 3 minutes, and you have a negative net worth of 1.5 million. You're starting over.
Right.
What's nice about that?
Right.
What's nice about that? You get to learn who you are. You get to learn whether or not your balls are attached or they're just there for decoration.
Right.
And and I think we all need to have that test now and again to find out for ourselves. Now, it sucks to get tested that way. I hate it. I don't want to go through that crap ever again.
Right.
I don't ever want to have to go through these things, but want something that's going to happen.
I'm
really
grateful.
whether or not you be able to handle it.
I'm grateful when I get taught these lessons in retrospect because I'm grateful that God cares enough about me to smack me in the face with a 2x4 to teach me a lesson. As I get older, I have learned to try to learn the lesson as quickly as possible because the smacking to the face ends quicker. The quicker you learn that lesson and the faster you get the humility from it, in my opinion.
There's a verse in James, and I'm going to get it wrong, but it's consider it pure joy, the trials, that you've been been placed before you, and I think of.
Is that James 21?
It could be. I'm not certain. I should know. It's one of my verses that I always talk. I always get it wrong, but
I know what you're talking about.
But anyhow, it'd been easy. And it's so hard when you're in the middle of these trials to think, oh, great, this is. God's going to pull me through this and show me the way, and bless me for it. But it seems like, you put your big boy pants on and you move forward and you kick life's ass. It's a lot of people, stay down there and continue to lay there, like you say.
Well, there's an excuse for everything. And when you start to see people, what I've seen is those who've had excuses growing up, and I've watched those excuses as a teenager and whatever, and I see these people that were adults and there's always somebody else's problem or somebody else's fault. I had zero respect for that person. Mm-hmm. And because my respect was so low for them, like, I can't be that guy. I don't want to be the person people have zero respect for. Plus, I'm not going to be that bitch. I'm going to push forward. I don't care if, I'm going to keep working even if my arm falls off, right? Because I'm not going to be labeled as that guy that can't get it done. And I think that's part of it that drives me to do that kind of thing because of the respect thing. And the other is, when I did the rescue for the sheriff's office after my accident, all this stuff, I got out there and do it. There was a person on there that she was in charge of what I call our technical rescue team. That's the elite members of the rescue unit that does all the high angle stuff. And she, in my opinion, the way everybody had presented her with her exploits in rescue, I'm like, she's way up here. Like, she may be in her mid-50s. Yeah. This woman sounds like a badass. She was chain smoking up there and whooping people's ass and getting all this stuff done. And then when it came down to it, when people's lives were on the line, she wasn't getting it done. Right. She was actually stepping back and she was flustered. And it's like, wait a minute. I put you here. And I get frustrated. I push the person way up there because of what you tell me. But in reality, you're about here. But my mind puts you here. Mm-hmm. So when I saw that type of dynamic in my life and how I viewed people, and that I put you way down here, I was no way I ever wanted to be up. So if anybody put me up here and they talk to me about up here, I better be way up there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I need to be better than what they describe me as, which is really tough to do because I got a buddy of mine, Joel, that when he goes and when I'm not there and he's talking to people, they expect me to walk in being 10 foot tall and bulletproof because he builds me up so big. It's like, man, now I have to be a real badass because of what Joel said.
We talk you up around here.
Well, for good reason. Yeah. Let's just jump ahead. So I don't know what benchmark we want to use for production. Maybe year to date. Like how many loans? Like what's your production as a?
What'd you do last year?
Yeah,
last year we had 1,378 transactions, mostly for real estate investors. It's interesting being number one.
How much of that is real estate investors, if you don't mind?
95% easy. Okay. And a lot of it would be like even the owner occupied stuff was for my investors, right? Mm-hmm. So I did very little with anybody that was outside of that. My mom's clients, people buying houses to live in, we did loans for her, but I steered a lot away from the traditional real estate stuff, especially first-time home buyers, people buying houses to live in. One, that's oversaturated, people trying to get in that market. Two, it's an emotional space. This shouldn't be an emotional process. It should be numbers, and it should make sense. That's why I gravitated to the real estate investor.
1,378, is that what you said?
1,378 loans. So between 5 and 6 every working day. The average person in our space, there's 1.4 million. There's just short of 600,000 of them, so 600,000 loan originators doing between 0 and 1 transaction per month. Mm-hmm. I was doing between 5 and 6 every working day.
So what? So
and let me dig deeper on that. So you aren't a traditional loan officer either. You are not a traditional broker.
Look at me.
Not just the way you look, but the way that you take a holistic approach to your clients and the understanding of real estate. You help them understand real estate. You do more than just do their loan for them. You look at their finances on a holistic and pass on hard-earned knowledge from yourself and from others because you're as connected as anyone in this industry. Well, so
it goes back to a philosophy or a quote that I heard years ago. It says, good judgment comes from experience and experience comes from bad judgment. The people coming into the real estate space, a lot of them don't have the experience to be able to know what's good judgment at this point. Right? They haven't been down that path yet. And that's a great way to learn on the grade school playground. We talked earlier today over lunch about, what it's like to get punched in the face.
Right.
Not a great way to learn in real estate. So when they come to me with a question that they've never had to answer before, right, or a scenario they've never encountered, tell them, call me. Because when you're doing 6 transactions a day, you get to see where a lot of people are making decisions in their business, where they're failing, where they're succeeding. I'll never answer your question with an answer. I'll give you a story of where I've seen other people do it, what caused them to succeed and where they failed, so you can make a decision based on practical data, not speculation and theory. And the reason I do that is because the people in my space, humans are the apex predator, right? We fall prey to no other species except other humans. Well, people in the lending space, they're all a bunch of freaking predators. And that's one of the things I hate about my industry. But one of the things I love about my industry is all a bunch of damn predators. Mm-hmm. It doesn't take long for you to figure out that guy was preying upon you. Right. And right now, that's what they're doing with the arms that they're quoting all the time. And I'll get into that later. But when you're talking about the predator mindset and how they're preying upon these people, they don't care about deal 2. They are hell-bent on closing deal 1 because that's all they really have been trained to do is close the deal and move on to the next guy.
But you're in a really specialized
We're in a specialized situation where
field.
I'm not worried about deal one. I'm worried about deal 6. Right. So if they get screwed on deal 1, they're not coming back for 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. But if they have a great experience on 1, there's a good chance they'll do 2. If they have a great experience on number 2, there's a good chance they'll do 3. I am worried about how do we get them to 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and then some, because they have to have a great experience every single freaking time.
We're on the opposite side of the table of this. We're constantly pushing our investors and our friends and our clients, to you. And I've heard Scotty say the same story over and over and over again, because Scotty works in this space within our business a little bit more than I do, is that when you're talking mortgages for investment properties, it's a very specialized world. Please, please, please don't go to your bank and walk in and try to get a loan. Call my buddy, Aaron Chapman. He's the man when it comes to investment property. And our listeners are people that are heavy investment, investors, real estate investors, and people that want to get into it. So can you tell us, why should someone choose a specialist within investment real estate for their mortgages such as you?
Well, too often,
I know the answer, but I want everyone to hear it.
Well, too often people look at this as a commodity or as a consumer's process, where they're looking at cost, right? They're going to look at what's my interest rates, what's my cost. That's the first thing people ask. Well, I tend to get into the depth of the conversation about what are you trying to accomplish and why would you even get involved in real estate? Because it can't be about the rates. Rates are going to move. It can't be about the cost. That's all going to move based upon the economy and based upon inflation, which we're dealing with it significantly. There's got to be more to it. What is that, right? So that's when we get into the depth of the transaction. And so I'll spend 30 to 45 minutes with that new investor, and even a seasoned investor who claims to be seasoned. They're seasoned by what? Right? A lot of times they're seasoned by 3% rates and great cash-on-cash returns models. Right. Now it's time to figure out, how do we season you in a market today? So it really gets down to helping them understand where the real value in real estate is, where real wealth is created, not in cash-on-cash return, and opening up their mind. And if I can't open up their mind in that 30 minutes, then we're not a good fit. Because I've seen all this stuff, I've experienced all this stuff, and if they're going to get so wrapped up in what's out there in the market of people selling the smallest metric because it was easy to sell, and that's where their aim is, then we're not going to be. We shouldn't be doing business together. So I spend that first half hour making sure that we're aligned, and making sure that what we're able to do meets the objectives that they're trying to get. And sometimes helping them understand what their objective is. They don't even know what their objective is. They know that most millionaires are made in real estate. Right. The easiest place to get is in the turnkey space, because there's literally bumpers. It's done for you. Exactly. Yeah. There's bumpers on the bowling alley, right? So let's go that route.
And then they hear from everyone over and over, cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. And that's the metric that they look at. And so it takes folks like us to help even seasoned investors understand the ancillary. They're not ancillary benefits. They're truly the main benefits. The cash flow is actually the ancillary benefits of a tenant paying down your mortgage for you over 10 years. You capture appreciation, the tax, the tax benefits of owning real estate. All of these main things that help people understand it. And it's okay if you're a seasoned investor and you've never really looked at that, because you've been on an easy road for the last 10 years. You can look at cash flow and you can see your rents increasing and appreciating, but this is a different market we're in, and it's time to really dive into what real estate is, so that your business, these folks who want to own real estate, you can't just give up every time that the market isn't going a rocket straight up. This model works in any type of market if you're with the right people, if you have the right mortgage person that's looking at your long-term view, not selling you a cheap arm just to get you in and then you're screwed years later.
Well, the thing about that arm is, if you hear the banks in the background, the people in the background that are preaching that, the leadership of the banks, sell the arms. One, because it's easy to sell against the other competitors. And then two, that person has to come back to you to refinance in 5 or 7 years. You've got a built-in clientele. Right. They're turning you. They're churning you. It's predatory, in my opinion. They're never going to say it's predatory, right? I think it is. Some of the toughest times in my business is when the rates go down and people refinance, because everybody's calling to refinance because the rates went down. And I'm having to illustrate to them that's what they want you to do. Right. That's not what you should do. In fact, I've got a client who had a $120,000 mortgage. He came to me year 4, 48 months later. And he's like, hey, it's time to refinance. The rates are lower. It's like, this is not when you should do that. We're busy. We spend a lot of time talking people out of it to show them the numbers. Well, let me show you why this is a big deal to the banks. So if have you ever seen an amortization table? What does the first 5 years look like?
Yeah.
You don't pay off much principal.
Yeah, it's almost all interest. Right. So this guy paid $36,000 in payments over 48 months.
Right.
But the balance went down only by $6,000. Right?
Right.
So then he comes to us to do the refinance. I tried to talk him out of him. I couldn't. By the time it was done, he finally signed and closed. His balance was within $166.04 of the original balance. 48 months later, he had not paid it down at all. He was back at his original balance.
Right.
What happens if he does that every 4 to 5 years over 20 years?
Never pay. Yeah.
He pays $180,000 in interest and never pays down the principal.
That's a great point. I mean, I know amortization, tables, just as well as anybody, but I mean, I kind of forget.
Right, that it's interest up front. It's heavier loaded.
It is. And
the benefits on year 10 are amazing, but the benefits on year 11, year 12, the benefits accelerate.
Well, they're even accelerating more. So it's not just in the pay down of it, right? So before we get into that, let's talk about the guy down the street who bought at the exact same time. Same model, same price, same everything, but stayed in his loan. In 20 years, he paid 2/3 of it down.
Right.
This guy's still in the original loan amount. Right. So, but I do agree with pulling cash out and putting it into other investments. That's a whole other strategy to grow your wealth with somebody else's money. Because now when somebody says, well, what's my cash on cash return? It's infinite because none of your money was involved. This is somebody else's money that somebody else is paying off. It's infinite returns. It's only that first money that you put in that was yours that's really your investment. Everything else is created.
We preach a little bit of conservativeness with that. We worry about people. It became popular to pull too much out.
Well,
people were too aggressive.
You got to have a structure and a plan with all that.
Correct.
I don't mean go crazy. Yeah. But what's the worst case scenario? You over leverage, right?
Right.
You leverage more than what it's worth. Whose problem is that now?
Right.
It's not yours.
Right.
It's the bank who now just put money into an over leveraged property.
Right.
But if you're still building up
cash
value,
flowing,
right, and you're still getting tax benefits.
Right.
The appreciation will eventually come back, but it is already appreciated. You took more out of it than what you owed.
The value of the real estate for our long-term holds, Clint and I, we don't care what it says it's worth. We're not selling any of it.
100%.
It's long-term holds. So I don't care if the market. I mean, don't get me wrong. I want the stuff to appreciate. Of course I do. Because someday I'm going to capture that.
We're not in this thing for it to collapse.
Correct. But at the same time, if it cash flows, it's a good investment. If it cash flows and the tenant's paying it down and the rents are increasing over time, there's certain things that don't matter as much. The cash flow isn't the focus. The value of the property isn't the focus. It's about paying that thing down, increasing rents. Your mortgage stays the same, and your rents are going up every year.
Well, even if you're the investor who doesn't make a single dime on the money, I mean, on your investment, right? You put your investment in, you don't make any cash back, but you're not putting another single dollar out.
Right.
Let's say that the market keeps your house the exact same value for 30 years. It never goes up in value, but you got the tax benefits. You got to do what you're good at, which is the job that you do, right? That's what I tell everybody. Don't ever be the kind of guy that says, well, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to find the house myself, and I'm going to rehab it myself. You're not a contractor. You're not a real estate guy. You're an engineer. Continue to do what you're good at and get other people to do what they're good at.
And if I can make a point on that, we see people try to do that. They'll come to us and then they're like, well, I can go do this. They end up with more money in the property trying to do it themselves because they're getting our scraps.
And they wasted the time.
And they wasted all their time. So it's usually not the best option for
contractors screwing them over.
Because they can smell those guys, man. There's some other predators out there. Them sharks can take advantage. So you did what you're good at, and you utilized this real estate to offset your taxes so significantly you kept more of your money. Right? You're going to make it all back in your taxes in a short window of time of what you invested anyway. So if people would just excise their head from their ass and think about the depth of what's going on here, they'd understand the cash on cash return metric is the smallest metric in the entire deal. But even at that, let's say you start off, one thing that I'm hearing right now is like, I'm only getting a 2% cash on cash. Right. Okay, so that means you're making cash flow the first year. Well, yeah, but it's only like $50. Well, let's talk about that for a second. So if you got a house that's got $1,000 a month in income, right? $1,000 a month base rent, and you're making $50 a month on the thing. Let's say you raise the rents next year. How much rents are going up by year over year?
15% right now.
15% here. So it's 12% nationally. Well, let's say you only raised it 5%. What's 5% of 1,000?
I mean, 5% of $1,000 is $50.
$50. I figured Rayman had it faster than that. So $50.
I do.
But you were making,
trying to be modest.
So that's the increased cash flow year 2, right? You made $50 year 1. Now your cash flow is what? $100 year 2?
Right.
What percentage increase did you just have?
The $50 on 1,000.
Now it went to 100.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a 100% increase.
Right. 100% increase.
You got a 100% increase on your cash flow.
Right.
Then the next year you raise it again by 5%. That's $50 goes to 150. That's a 50% increase in your cash flow.
Right.
Look at the compound growth. Compound double-digit, triple-digit growth the first year, then double-digit, and it continues to compound that until it's not long, and now all of a sudden, wait a minute, look where I'm at. Now you're making that massive cash-on-cash return. But here's the big point. Does the lender get to raise the payment on the loan because of inflation?
Right.
No, it stays the same. So they're going to get the exact same dollar amount every year, but the dollar's doing what with inflation? Where's its value going?
Yeah.
It's declining.
Going down.
Right.
So I have a calculator. You guys got to go to your app store right now and go to the QJO investment tool. It stands for the Quit Jerking Off Investment Tool. And the reason I called it that, because anybody who's chasing the rate, that's all you're doing is jerking off and wasting time on things of no value. So if you go in there, you go to the amortization calculator. You have to pause this, and you come back to it once you get it. Go to the amortization calculator. You're going to put in the first line the percentage down, say 20%. Then you're going to put the interest rate, put 7.5, put 8, put whatever. Then you're going to put in, you don't put in any additional payment, just put in those items and hit calculate. Then in the upper right-hand corner, you're going to see what looks like a calendar icon. You're going to click on that. You're going to scroll to the right 30 years, save and close, and then you can scroll down and see how much money you actually paid, the dollar amount you paid, which on the $80,000 loan, probably about 100 and probably, depending upon your interest rate, anywhere from $192,000 to $211,000 in principal and interest. But you're going to see the actual inflation adjusted dollars after inflation eroded. Every time you make a payment, based on this calculator, your dollar loses 0.66% of its value every time you make a payment.
Right.
Well, what that means is over the period of 360 months, you paid less than you borrowed.
Yeah. And who really paid that anyway? It's not you. Your tenant paid it.
Your tenant paid it, right? So what's really kills me when people get so wrapped up in the rates are still below the rate of inflation, far below the rate of inflation. Because if you go to shadowstats.com, you'll see the rate of inflation is nearly 17% right now. It's been above 12 since I think 2012. It's been above 8 since the 90s. When you look at the real rate of inflation, the 2% metric that they give you, the CPI, is a cooked metric. I mean, we're all familiar with the NYSE and the NASDAQ and the S&P and the Dow, right? Those are all indexes. Are they all equal in value?
No.
They're all different. Why? Because there's different things in them.
Right.
The CPI is different than it was originally because they've cooked it to only have certain things in them that they can manipulate with monetary policy. That's why they can say, hey, we achieved 2%. Well, 2% on what? Because it can't be in all things we spend money on because
energy is not included in it anymore, right?
No, it's not energy and part segments of housing.
Yeah.
Think back when we were in junior high. My mom could give me $1. I could jump on my skateboard. I can go down to the corner store. I could buy a gallon of milk and a candy bar and bring her home change.
Right.
Can we do that today?
No, of course not.
Can't even buy the damn candy bar.
Right.
I was on a podcast yesterday with the guys from Roofstock. He goes, dude, I just paid $1.79 for a Kit Kat.
Right.
Right. It's like, it's crazy to think.
The Coke machine at my hotel the other day, it was $5 for a can of Coke.
$5 for a can of Coke.
At the machine at the hotel.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
Well, rate is obviously a huge piece of the discussion that we have with our clients, as I know it is you. And we just heard you say, quit chasing rates. However, we see people trying to chase rates all the time or say, well, I'm not going to buy because, it's 7 and change now, and it used to be 2. And, it's so what do you say to that?
Well, I asked him, why did it get down to 3.5 was the lowest I think I saw. Why did it get down
in the investment
world?
world.
2 in the owner-occupied world. Well, 1, how did it even get down there? Do we know?
I mean, we pumped a bunch of money into our economy and
bad monetary policy,
lowered rates to keep things.
It was all the quantitative easing, right? We go back to 2009. They started quantitative easing January 1st, 2009, after the 2008 crash. They dumped in $1.25 trillion in from January 1, 2009 to the end of March 2010, right? $1.25 trillion in that window of 1 year and 3 months, so a year and a quarter.
Right.
So $20.25 trillion every quarter over that period of time. Then you advance up to COVID. When COVID hit March 20th of 2010 and the market tanked, they literally rocketed up quantitative easing. They put in $1 trillion in 10 days from March 20th to March 30th of 2020. Right, so when you look at what they've pumped in $8.9 trillion into mortgage-backed securities and treasuries over that period of time to keep liquid for people to continue to borrow at a very, very low rate. Well, then you have the other people in the market saying, "Hey, we're going to jump in on this because the yields are where they're at, and we're going to piggyback off the Fed." Well, now they've peaked out, and the Fed's like, "We're $8.9 trillion. We're going to back off. We're not going to reinvest any of our earnings off of our investments into the mortgage-backed securities. We're going to taper back." Now they went from $8.9 trillion to like $8.2 $7 some odd trillion. It only dipped a little bit, and our interest rates tripled, or actually more than doubled.
They're pulling on one lever that really isn't the problem.
It's an imaginary lever. The lever should never have been there.
Correct.
Right? That never,
As Clint always says that. The rates should have never been there. Well, but that's the only lever they're pulling, and they're not tightening up on the other things that they should. You know, it's pretty concerning. You know, they think that this solution, I have a feeling it's not going to work as well. Which is part of the reason why we're so bullish right now on real estate. You know, we feel like it's a safe haven for the coming, period.
100% agree. If you got it, and if you're in a because I know some people right now are debating whether I stay in contract, but we're 5.2 million houses short to meet the supply. Right. And now we're supply chain issues because of COVID.
Doesn't Fannie say 8 million?
I'm just going off of what I was given when I can't remember where I got the statistic, but it was 5.2 million short. It could be 8 million, based upon whatever metric they're going off of, right? And then you've got the hurricane that just hit Florida and wiped out how many houses? Now supply chain is going to be redirected as a result of just putting back what was there. We're not going to catch up to the demand.
Well, the demand it's in sections too. So for most investors, they're under $250,000 price point homes, right? A lot of first-time home buyer type product homes for investors. Well, there's such a shortage in that area, and you're going to get all these people that are, say, in the $400,000 to $1 million price point that are now priced out of as owner occupants in that area, can no longer afford a $400,000 home. They're still looking for a home to buy, and they're going to get pushed down into the first-time home buyer market that's already flooded with investors. I see the investment sector, the values, just there's so much pressure on them and not enough supply. And no one's been building these homes for under $250,000 anywhere in the United States for the last 10 years. So I see a lot of pressure in a great spot.
Here it was more like 04.
Yeah.
It's been since 04 that you had prices, under that level.
Right. So, I mean,
it's different in other markets.
Talk about a shortage of supply versus increasing demand in one sector. Now, will that hold up against the pressures of the world and values? What are values going to do? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball.
And that's the thing. We don't know. We have no idea what the outcome is going to be of the decisions that have been made by people that don't understand their decisions they're making. So I think it was said best by Jerome Powell. He said, the thing we've learned about inflation is we don't know much about inflation. That was said within the last 90 to 120 days. The other thing that we're finding out when you do the research on those people in the Fed directors and presidents and governors and all that kind of stuff, the majority of them have only worked for the Fed. I think there's 3 or 4 of them that worked in education before. Well, how alarming is that? Yeah. The people that are making, they're basically making monetary policy. They're making decisions for our economy from the banking perspective.
Are theorists.
They've only been in a bubble of where they're at today. They don't have the practical application or practical data looking beyond that. The other thing is you have those that come from education, which I don't know if you guys seen the movie or the series Billions. Yeah. Remember the first season where Axelrod's wife was involved in that? What's her name? Ackerman, who played his wife. She said something that was really, really poignant. She says, everything in academia is a big fucking deal because the stakes are so small. That is such a poignant statement when you think about these people that are now in that position, that they can theorize whatever they want and it can be true in their mind because they don't have to practically apply it. Right. The people that have to practically apply it, the people that they teach, and they don't care at that point whether it works in practicality or not because they're not involved anymore. It can be whatever you want in theory. I remember walking by some guys at an event and they're sitting around a table and somebody they were talking about time travel and how they mentioned that Einstein proved it with such and such theory. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. He proved what? Well, time travel. And they started telling me all about it. It's like, well, if he proved it, his ass would be standing here. He didn't prove shit. He talked about it. Right. He gave a really, really convincing theory about it, but he's not here.
Right. It's interesting. I got into this documentary they did on Nostradamus, on the History Channel. And then they go back to all these quatrains that he had wrote. And, I'm like, but not a single one of them have been predicted, but then you see the planes like fly into the World Trade Center, and he said you see the Great Fire from the new city or something like that. Like, oh, he predicted 9/11.
Yeah, he gets 1 out of every 1,000 things he wrote down. But
no one on September 10th, 2001 or before said, well, that quatrain means that there's going to be planes fly in. It's just. Hindsight's always 20/20.
People can always make anything fit what they need it to fit.
Correct.
Right? And I don't know how many. So called religious gurus that had the spaceship that was landing on such and such day. That had people eat the pudding or drank the Kool-Aid or whatever they were going to do.
Right.
You know, and it's from my perspective,
Heaven's Gate.
You keep going at it until you're not there anymore. You know, a lot of people ask me, like, so you have a retirement plan? It's like, when I go to the grave, I'm coming in hot.
Yeah.
No, I'm never going to stop because I don't know when it's time to stop, and there's no reason to stop. Because it's my belief that there's always something around the corner that you need to be involved in, you need to start making a dent in, and you need to evolve into. Right? I have not achieved my potential whatsoever, and I don't know what that potential is. We'll find that out someday, and I'm not going to find out till it's done. You know, the one thing that I'm grateful for that God has done for me is, at least when I started up this trail on this mountain that I'm on now, there was enough fog for me to only see the trail in front of me. Because if I knew how treacherous it was, how rocky, how steep, how many poisonous serpents were on this bitch, I wouldn't have started.
I couldn't agree more.
You know, but now the fog is still above me, but everything I look down on and I see what I've walked, I'm like, damn, I can't believe I went up that. But one thing I am grateful for is no other son bitch is going to follow me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? I'm on this alone, and that's probably one of the worst parts of it is you are alone in all these things. And I have you guys, love you guys, and I got all these people that encourage me and help me. They're part of my team. I got 32 staff members, but they're not the ones who get me out of bed. I got to get my own ass up.
Yeah.
I got to get up before the foot does at 4:30 in the morning. I got to do my prayer. I got to do my reading. I got to do my study. I got to know the market. I got to work out every day. Nobody's going to do that for me. My wife can't make me do that. My kids can't make me do that. My parents can't make me do that. Now, my mom and dad had a good way of taking a belt or something, get my ass out of bed. But that motivation only works so far. Now when I'm an adult, the motivation's 100% me, and we are alone in this. And if you don't get yourself up and get yourself going, you only have yourself to blame.
Yeah, so get up in the morning, start looking at real estate, quit being short-sighted on which parts of real estate you're looking at. As his books say, quit jerking off and get in the game. It can be a scary time no matter when you do it, but it is always a good investment. Real estate is no matter what the market conditions, we've yet to see a market where we haven't been able to find success and others like us find success. So quit being scared, get in the game, join us. The water's warm.
And you got to understand what success is, right? It's defining it properly. And the one thing that people make the mistake of is trying to time the market. You'll never, ever, ever be able to time the market. Trying to time the market, I equate it to being a star football player sitting on the bench, waiting for the perfect time to jump in and get on the highlight reel. The only people on the highlight reel already have their ass on the field. You got to be on the field. You got to be playing. You got to know your area of coverage. You got to know your job and do your damn job. But let other people do their job. What we talked about earlier, quit trying to do other people's job. Right. Quit trying to do what you think you could make more money on. So some people look at this.
You've got the experts like you to handle the financing side, and people like you who not just handle it, but will teach you along the way. You'll get to learn from somebody who does this more than anyone else in the nation, and he just opens it up for free and explains it all to you. You've got groups like us across the nation who are going to provide the houses. We're an open book. You want to see how we do it? We'll happily show you so you can try it on your own someday.
And the services you guys give, they don't understand, is they get it for free. And
I know.
Let me break this down for you, those who are listening. The reason you're getting Scott and Clint's services for free and Wilty Wealth Advisors is because if you decide I'm going to go do this on my own, you're going to go out there and you're going to find a house. And more than likely, it's going to be listed because that's the only way you're going to find it. It's going to have a sign in the yard. You're going to stop. You're going to call the realtor. You're going to negotiate with them. They're going to negotiate the fair market value, right? You're going to pay fair market value for this house, right? Once you close on that house, where's your realtor at? They're gone. Best case, and I was actually on the phone with a client one time, I told this to him, best case, you're going to possibly get a Christmas card with a picture of her and her damn cat and some stupid sweater, right?
Some Wendy's coupons.
He cracked up laughing. He goes, you would never guess what I'm holding right now. It's like, what, a picture of my realtor with her damn cat and a Christmas sweater. That's awesome. It actually happened, so I called that shit out, right? So you're going to get that. Well, then they're going to recommend their brother-in-law who's a property manager, right? And then you're going to have that problem because that person's a tool bag, doesn't know what he's doing. He's only getting referrals from his sister-in-law, and you're going to have to go through property manager to property managers. Finally get one who knows what they're doing. You're going to go try and find these contractors that are going to screw you, and you're going to have problems with this house. And eventually, you might get it closed, get it done, rehabbed, and might get it rented, and you're thousands of dollars behind. Or you can take these guys. You'll get the property at fair market value. You'll get tenant in there and management, and they're going to either build it or rehab it, manage it, and maintain it for you for free. Sure, you're paying that. What is it? What's your guys' what are you guys charging for
management fee? 10%.
10% management fee, right? That's the market's cost anyway. So you're getting market cost on the house, you're getting market cost on the management fee, and you're getting all the other stuff. The experience of 20 some odd years in business costs you nothing.
Right.
That's 40 years experience plus the rest of their staff. My staff, Heck, I got people on my staff that have been doing this since the 70s. I got one who's been an underwriter since 1982. You know, and I have 32 staff members. You get hundreds of years experience for absolutely nothing. And if you're going to go out there, you're going to commoditize that. So who's got the cheapest trade, the cheapest house, and you get screwed, you deserved it.
Right.
Every damn bit of it.
I can't begin to say how much knowledge you have in the investment property game. I can't, stress enough how important it is to go to someone, that knows what they're doing in the mortgage industry. It's not the same going into your bank. We want our listeners and everyone that's going to pay attention to this to know how to get a hold of you. So break down, where can people find you at?
Best way to get me is just go to aaronchapman.com. If that doesn't work, you might have to put a B in there, aaronbchapman.com, because for sometimes some servers don't work. And if you still can't find me, just Google Aaron Chapman. You can find the only bearded redneck lender is me. Right? There's, I think, a British soccer player. There's an author, a pastor, and somebody else out there. Maybe sings love songs or some crap.
So you do all continental U.S. states? I
do 28 states.
28
I don't
states,
chase
okay.
licenses in states that people don't buy investments in because it's a waste of my time and money.
Sure.
It's like I do 60 hours of continuing education as it is about stuff that we don't apply in the mortgage industry whatsoever.
Right.
But you learn what not to do,
Yeah.
right? I prefer just to stay so far away from something illegal. I can't risk my business or my clients over something stupid.
Makes sense. And Aaron has a lot of experience in all of these markets. He knows who's who. He can act as a guard for you too. He helps you from making those big mistakes. So when you go with someone like Aaron, who's truly plugged into just about every worthwhile supplier of properties across the country, you're going to get some serious protection out of that too, even though that's not his job or his duty. He takes that stuff seriously about educating and helping his clients and protecting them. So you get some ancillary benefits there big time too.
There's a few people out there that will highly push you not to use me, and it's usually because I've called them out on their shit.
Yeah.
Because I can't risk you or my business for somebody else's business. And the others, and there's some people that don't even know who I am. So it's possible to say, hey, we don't know that guy. Well, if they don't know me, introduce us. I'd love to be able to find out who they are and how their business is going, because if I look at that and they're not doing something to benefit you, I'll let you know. And I won't just tell you they suck. I will wait till the appraisal comes in, the inspection comes in. I will point out the things that you need to ask them and get the answer from them and let them tell you how much they suck.
Yeah, because you're looking under the hood on the seller side on this stuff.
Oh, 100%. And it's amazing how many sellers will go, oh, don't use Aaron because his appraisers suck. They never come in value.
No.
Well, it's because you're selling it for more than it's freaking worth.
No.
Right? You're sticking a person in the ass. And if a person tells you we only do cash, walk away from that guy. Don't ever buy from somebody that says we only do cash. Now, there's a different way of going about it. There's something called the Burr method. If they're doing that kind of thing, call me. I think I'm the only lender on the planet that can show you how to get this done and get your money back within the first 6 months.
Oh, cool.
We do it day in and day out.
Yeah, so for those of you out there who are into the Burr method and kind of doing this on your own, he's a resource you need. I know there's not a lot of mortgage lenders out there that can help.
Hardly any that will do that and
Yeah.
get your money back within the first 6 months. And the reason the way I figured it out, we were toying with the way that was getting it done. We were getting them funded, and Fannie came in and audited us. When Fannie and Freddie come in and audit, they don't come in quietly, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like they roll up tanks to your damn office,
I bet.
and they tore us apart. And we spent a year getting audited. Now, I got somebody slipped me an email from the board, where the board's like, "Man, should we terminate Aaron Chapman because of all the heat we're getting?" For all investment real estate, and they're like, no, let's wait until the freaking thing is over with, see what happens, right? Well, they called me in to look at all this stuff, and the president of the company was taking me to the airport. I said, let me ask you a question. We do a shit ton of first-time home buyers. He goes, yes. How much of that are we getting audited on? He goes, 0. I said, okay. I know the value of a portfolio for a lender is how well they pay. How many of those first-time home buyers have a delinquency within the first year? He goes, it's got to be 10+%. I said, okay.
Whoa.
What percentage of mine have a delinquency in the first year? He goes, I have never looked at that, but I'll bet it's but I can count that in one hand, the percentage in one hand. I said, go look it up. I'm going to ask you, what percentage do you think I had delinquency in the first year?
I mean, I would say under 5%. So, I mean,
2 borrowers.
yeah.
2 out of over 1,600 that they analyzed.
Yeah.
2 borrowers. And when they went and did the depth of it, one of it was our fault because we sent their bills to the wrong place.
Mm-hmm. Right.
1. So I'm like, so why am I catching all this flack? Well, by the time Fannie and Freddie were done with their audit, they figured out that they disliked how our appraisal order system was done. Everything else they were fine with. And then they taught me, this is how you should do what they called the delayed financing to be successful with your Burr stuff. And they showed me.
Oh, cool.
And now we're knocking it out all the time.
I think it speaks to investment real estate as a whole, especially the turnkey system, not just us, but groups like us across the nation, how well it works in the fact that all of these clients who've purchased all these investments, they're cash flowing enough to still make those payments. You know, more than an owner occupant who's going to be evicted from their own home. That's 10%. Yep. Meanwhile, these folks who buy these investment properties, they're paying their mortgages. You know why? Because it works.
And Fannie and Freddie said they love our stuff.
Of course,
bring it. We'll buy more of it.
Yeah.
Well, Scotty and I've got 40 years combined experience, over 40. We both started in this whenever we were 6 years old.
Yep, I'm 24 now.
But we've not seen anybody better at the investment property mortgage game than you.
I appreciate that.
We also consider you a dear friend, and we are very blessed to have you in our studio today. So thank you so much for coming. I look forward to the next time, and we've already set a date. We're coming out to see you the next the next trip. We're doing it. You have our word. But please follow this guy. Look him up. He's the man. He called himself the Redneck Mortgage Guy. If you're listening to this, Google him. You'll know who we're talking about. He's got an amazing beard. He's incredibly smart. He wrangles grizzly bears. He's just flat out awesome. So follow him. Keep watching the Homeboys. Till next time, happy investing.
Thanks, guys.